I'm kneeling on a bluestone courtyard while two women built like siege equipment press my shoulders down, and the man next to me is being stuffed into a sack. Alive. He's still kicking in there, and nobody around me finds this unusual. Welcome to my third day in this world. The lady of the house stands 10 steps away, pruning shears in hand. Beautiful, the way a glacier is beautiful. Sun Mei Shin, Madam Lin, owner of Mantuo Villa, grower of the finest camellias in the south, and, as of 30 seconds ago, the woman who just sentenced me to death for the crime of existing near her flowers. Her exact words, and I quote, "Drag him away, cut off his hands and feet, and bury him in the flowerbed as fertilizer." Fertilizer. Not execution, not even murder. Fertilizer. This woman looked at a living human being and thought, free compost. The flower farmer next to me, the one not yet in a sack, starts begging. He explains he only touched the plants because they had worms. He cries. He wets himself. Madam Lin wrinkles her nose and says gag him and bury him too, because there isn't a single good man in the world and the talkative ones deserve to die most. So begging is off the menu. Noted. Here's my situation in full. 3 days ago, I woke up in the body of a flower farmer in the world of an old Wuxia saga I know entirely too well. Gusu, the Lin family estate, the Camellia Gardens, which sounds lovely until you remember who runs this particular garden. A woman who spent 18 years marinating in hatred for the prince who loved her and left her, and who processes that heartbreak by turning male employees into soil supplements. I didn't even get a tutorial. I got a shovel, a quota of flower beds, and now a death sentence. She's clutching an old silk scroll in one hand, knuckles white, glaring at it between orders like it personally wronged her. And since crying is fatal here, I do the only other thing available. I laugh. Not a big laugh. A small, cold, deliberately annoying laugh. The kind of laugh you can hear an eyebrow rise at. The whip comes off her hip before I finish exhaling. "What are you laughing at?" she says, and the courtyard temperature drops 10 degrees. "I laugh at you, madam," I tell her. "Unmatched martial arts, and you still can't beat the one demon that actually matters. The one in your own heart." She crosses 10 steps in the time it takes me to blink, and her hand closes around my throat. Jade-smooth fingers, grip like a construction clamp. "You think you can talk your way out of dying?" she asks. And that's when the sky splits open. For me only. A chime goes off inside my skull. Words scroll across my vision. Peerless manual detected. Little formless technique. Heaven-defying comprehension activated. My golden finger has finally reported for duty, 3 days late at the literal last second of my life. Punctuality of a cable repairman. But I'm not complaining, because what happens next is unreal. The system reads her grip on my throat, the finger placement, the weight distribution, the flow of force, and reverse engineers her secret family technique from it, live, while she strangles me. She is currently teaching me her sex-forbidden inner art through the medium of attempted murder. A thunderclap goes off in my skull, and something pure and cool floods out of my core into limbs that have ached from field labor for years. Full comprehension, perfection realm, 0 to grandmaster in one choke. In the bonus feature, I can see her now. Really see her. Dark red threads of chi coil around her like smoke off a banked fire. Obsession, the system helpfully labels it. Unrequited love, fermented 18 years, weaponized. So I use the air I have left to say the most dangerous sentence available. "Madam, the technique in your hand demands an empty heart. Yours is full of one man. Every day you practice, you cook your own meridians. Kill me, and nobody left alive can cure your heart disease." Her hand trembles. On my throat. I feel the tremble arrive before her face admits anything. Because here's what she's thinking. The manual is a secret inheritance. She found it in her dead mother's things. She's practiced it for exactly a few days, and her chest has been burning wrong ever since. And a mud-covered flower farmer just diagnosed her from his knees. "Who are you?" she says. The murder in her eyes drops from 100% to maybe 70. "Just a flower farmer who's seen through the bitterness of the mortal world," I say. And while I'm saying it, I quietly run the brand new technique through my arm and flick her wrist. The silk scroll jumps out of her hand. I catch it, glide back 3 steps on footwork I've owned for 11 seconds, and offer it back to her like a waiter returning a dropped napkin. The courtyard loses its mind. Old women lunge at me. Madam Lin barks them back without taking her eyes off me, because she felt what that flick was. It was her own secret art, the one she's been bleeding to learn, performed cleaner than she can perform it, by the fertilizer. Then I say the name. Chen Haoran, Prince of Chenan, the man who wrecked her. Her face goes white, then twists. "You dare speak that name," she snarls, and I watch 18 years of damage flash across her face like lightning behind clouds. "Because only I can rip him out of your heart," I say, stepping closer instead of away. Or better, make him kneel and beg your forgiveness. Pick one. Both are on the menu. She actually steps back. This woman who feeds men to flowers steps back from an unarmed farmer. Somewhere in my skull, the system chooses this moment to print a warning. You are now entangled in Sun Mei Shin's karma. Fail to dissolve her obsession, and it devours you. Meridians wither, full body shutdown. Fantastic. My golden finger is a loan shark. Every power comes with interest, and the interest is my life. I sign anyway. It's not like the fertilizer option was better. Spare my life, I tell her, and I'll give you what you actually want. In exchange, I want access to Langhuan Jade Cave, the forbidden family library, the one containing several thousand martial manuals from every sect under heaven. For a comprehension system like mine, that's not a library. That's an all-you-can-eat buffet with the doors left open. She looks at me for a long moment. Coarse hemp clothes, mud on my knees, a face she was about to compost, and eyes that just read her entire life off a whip and a wrist. Fine, she says at last. From today, you're not a flower farmer. You're my personal attendant. Attendant is such a stiff word, madam, I say. Call me a guest of honor. She goes red, actually red, this glacier, snorts, and sweeps away. If you can't cure me, she throws over her shoulder, you'll dig your own flower bed. So that's the score at the end of day 3. I came within one shovel of becoming plant food, and I leave the courtyard as the honored guest of the most dangerous widow in the South, carrying a debt to a system that charges body parts as late fees. On my way out, I catch movement in the attic window. A girl in white, watching all of it, beautiful in a way that doesn't look manufactured. Book in one hand, curtain in the other. Lin Xiaoqing, the daughter. I can read her face from the courtyard. That flower farmer just repelled mother with one move, and everything he said matches the records in the cave. Remember her. I certainly do. She's about to matter more than everyone else in this story combined. That night, I don't sleep in the woodshed. I sleep in the side room next to Madame Lin's bedchamber, which sounds like a promotion until you learn what the job involves. Around midnight, her voice comes through the wall, strained. Get in here. I push the door open. Incense haze, white jade bed, and the lady of the house sitting cross-legged in a translucent robe, drenched in sweat, face burning. She forced another practice session of the technique she cannot practice. Of course she did. Telling this woman not to do something is just scheduling it. Fix it, she grits out. Use your inner energy, now. I walk to the bed and don't move a finger. Madam, when you ask a favor, mind your attitude. Her eyes flare, she inhales for the scream, and the deviation chooses that exact second to spike. Blood rushes up her throat. And now, timing sorted, I strike 6 acupoints along her collarbone in a blur and pour the cool current of the formless art through her meridians. The fire dies down. She sags into my arms, panting, eyes glassed. And then, while she's soft and open and undefended, I do the actually cruel part, the medicine part. You don't practice to get stronger, I say into her ear. You practice to prove something to him. You want him to regret. And the harder you try, the more you belong to him. Shut up, she whispers. She's crying already. He's the Prince of Jinan. I keep going, gentle as a scalpel. Charming, wealthy, women in every province. You think he lies awake thinking about the woman growing flowers in Gusu? To him, you're one thorny flower in a very large garden. He loved me, she screams, thrashing. He said it. Having loved isn't loving, I say, and take her chin so she can't look away. Look at yourself. Where's the woman he supposedly couldn't forget? All I see is someone who got left and takes it out on gardeners. She shatters. Full collapse, face buried in my shoulder, 18 years of pus coming out at once. Brutal? Yes, but you don't lance an abscess politely. The system chimes agreement. Her obsession has loosened, my technique deepens, new skill acquired. Chains of mind, a live feed of other people's emotional weather. From today, forget Chen Haoran, I tell her while she sobs. I'll show you real power. I'll take you to Dali and he'll kneel to kiss the hem of your skirt. She looks up at me, wrecked and glowing, and the man she almost composted this morning has just become her entire load-bearing wall. What do I do? She whispers. First, I say, take me to the cave. Morning. The whole villa gets a free show. The fertilizer elect strolling behind Madame Lin into the family's holiest forbidden ground. Lin Xiaoqing intercepts us at the cave mouth, polite fury in white. Mother, how can you let an outsider in here? Xiaoqing, don't be rude, says her mother, in a tone the daughter has clearly never heard aimed at her before. Mr. Shu is my honored guest, and your elder. Elder? I watched the girl's worldview crack straight down the middle. Her mother just handed seniority to the compost. I stop in front of her and bow slightly, and the system pings, fragments of Lingbo microsteps detected in the vicinity, meaning this girl's head is a walking library. So I give her a free sample of the house special. Miss Lin, you've read every manual alive and never practiced one. Is that because the world's martial arts bore you, or because you're waiting for one specific person to notice you for it? Direct hit. She goes rigid. Because that is exactly the deal she's built her whole life on. Memorize everything, feed it to cousin Song Yi Chin, get patted on the head. A human reference shelf hoping to be loved for the indexing. Stop reading dead books, I tell her on my way into the cave. Your cousin wants an empire, not a cousin who can recite. You can't help him. You can only wear yourself out trying. She stamps her foot at my back. Behind me, her mother says quietly, Xiaoqing, go home. Think about what he said, and then the cave swallows me, and I stop pretending to be calm. Shelves, shelves to the ceiling, yi-yang finger, star shifting, mind cultivation arts from sects that don't exist anymore. The system doesn't read books, it inhales them. I run my hand down a spine and the finger technique of the Dali royal house unpacks itself in my head, imperial luck and all. Next shelf, the Song family's signature redirection art. Karma lines bloom off my fingertips like I dipped them in starlight. Power is compounding by the shelf, so, naturally, is the bill. I can feel the system's ledger getting heavier behind my ribs, and right on cue, hoofbeats outside. A herald's voice, big in bronze. The Prince of Jinnan, Chen Haoran, requests an audience with Madame Lin. Speak of the debt, and the debtor arrives. Sun Mei Xin goes corpse pale and looks at me like a drowning woman looks at driftwood. I close the manual and smile. Main culprits here, I say. Madam, decided how you want him to pay? Picture the most successful romance scammer in the world at 50. Purple and gold robes, hair like a shampoo advertisement, that gentle, sad smile trained on 10,000 women. That's Chen Haoran, standing in our water pavilion, delivering an apology monologue to an empty folding screen. Mei Xin, I know you hate me, but every day for 18 years, I've missed you. He's saying this to furniture, and he's saying it beautifully, because this is his craft. Half the heroines of the martial world have fallen for this exact speech at this exact angle with this exact catch in the voice. Behind the screen, Sun Mei Xin is gripping her skirt hard enough to draw blood from her own palms. 18 years of antidote, and his voice still works on her like the original poison. She takes a step toward the screen, and my hand lands on her shoulder. I lean in and offer color commentary. Look closely, madam. A peacock, spreading a very used tail. The shiver that runs through her is the sound of a spell breaking. Her spine straightens, her eyes frost over, and she walks out from behind that screen not as the abandoned woman, but as the landlord. The prince lights up. Mei Xin, you finally agreed to see me. And then his face does something wonderful. It stops. Because she didn't come out alone. She came out arm in arm with a young man in black, and the young man is smiling at him the way you smile at an old poster of a retired celebrity. Chen Yang, she says, voice like ice cubes. Long time. Meet my guest of honor, Xu Jiangyu. Guest of honor, the prince's brain visibly blue screens. This is the most infatuated woman in his collection. Her entire personality was supposed to be missing him. The shrine has a new tenant. You're humiliating me with some servant, he manages, finger shaking. Humiliating you, I say, stepping forward. Your Highness, you flatter yourself. To madam, you're an expired debt with mold on it. I'm just the collector. He roars something about my death wish and fires a yi-yang finger at me. The famous one-finger art of the Dali royal house. A compressed beam of qi that drills through stone. Not a killing blow, a discipline blow, the kind you use on impudent furniture. Small problem for him. I read the complete manual of his family technique this morning, and my version merges with the formless art and comes out triple strength. I raise one finger and meet him halfway. The impact goes off in the air between us with a sound like a struck bell, and the prince, the grandmaster, the royal, the legend, staggers backward 5 steps and sits down in a pot of prize camellias. He stares at me from inside the flowerbed. That was Yi-Yang finger, he says. What are you? Your finger art is soggy with sentiment, I tell him. You owe your women more than a finger can repay, your highness. That debt takes a life to settle. And then Sun Mei Xin delivers the actual killing blow, and she does it without any qi at all. She walks over, straightens my collar in front of him, a wife's gesture, unhurried, domestic, and says, you can go now, Chen Yang. Mantuo Villa doesn't receive you. Save the speeches for your other flowers. The man who has never once in 50 years been the one left behind gets up out of the camellias, gathers what's left of his face, and leaves. The system rings up the sale before the gate even closes. Karma between Sun Mei Xin and Chen Haoran severed by public humiliation. First wave of the red dust tribulation incoming. Dali has noticed you. Chen Li has noticed you. That last name puts a genuine chill through me. In the original story, that's the most dangerous cripple alive. But that's a future installment of my debt. Today, I'm collecting, because Lin Shaoqing watched the whole thing from behind a pillar, and when I catch her eye, she doesn't just run. She hesitates first. Your cousin's tangled up with the beggar sect right now, I call after her. If you ever want to actually save him instead of footnoting him, come learn from me. And that evening, a maid whispers in my ear, the young miss just sent an urgent letter to Swallow Dock, to cousin Song Yichen. I smile at the candle. The proud little fish took the bait and mailed it to a bigger fish. She thinks she's calling in reinforcements to rescue her mother from me. What she's actually done is send an engraved invitation to the exact tiger I wanted in this ring. Very good, I tell the dark. Let's see the whole board. But first, and I want to be honest about the order of operations here, first I consolidate the home base. And by consolidate, I mean the thing you're thinking. That night, I find Sun Mei Xin alone at the water pavilion with an untouched jug of wine, staring at the moon like it owes her money. Victory this afternoon, emptiness by midnight. She spent 18 years being the woman who hates Chen Haoran. I deleted the hate. Nobody told her what's supposed to live in that empty room now. You drove out the old ghost, I say behind her, and now the house echoes, right? She spins, caught, furious at being caught. And what should I do then, she demands, tears finally jumping the fence. I built my whole life out of making him sorry. What's left? I lean down, brace my arms on the railing either side of her, and give her the new tenant for the empty room. Be my woman. No poetry, no vows, just a flat, arrogant, load-bearing sentence. Your worth was never his love, I tell her. Your worth is that I chose you. That's the entire reason. It's enough. For a woman drowning in freefall, arrogance is a floor. She grabs it with both hands. I carry her to the bedchamber and kick the door shut, and the bang of it is a border between her old life and the new one. What happens after that is between me, her, and the extremely well-bloomed camellias outside. But I'll note one detail. At the peak of it, she calls me Jiang her own private name for me, invented on the spot, and whispers there's plenty of time later, which in the language of a woman like this is a marriage certificate, a property transfer, and a loyalty oath rolled into one sentence. By dawn, Mantuo Villa has a new owner. I stand at the window, feeling the formless art hum smoother than ever. Apparently, sincere surrender purifies the qi. Who knew? And look out toward Taihu Lake, where a letter is racing toward Song Yi Chen. Come on then, Southern Song. Test the new management. Management makes its debut that same morning. Full staff assembly in front of the water pavilion. Everyone whispering the same math. 3 days ago, he was Fertilizer. Today, he's standing where the master stands. From today, I announce, my word is the rule of this manor. Madam's word is my word. A shrill voice cuts in from the crowd, and I know my first challenger before I turn around. Grandma Sun, Senior Steward, Chief Enforcer, the woman who spent years converting Madame Lin's rage into broken servant bones and skimming silver off the operation the whole time. I've had 3 days to read this household's books, and her page is the greasiest. Where did this wild pup come from? She squawks at me. Madam, has this boy bewitched you? I stop Sun Mei Shin's whip hand with a look and walk down the steps myself, smiling. You're not defending Madam, I tell Grandma Sun pleasantly. You're scared. Scared the new management audits the books. Scared someone counts the flower farmers who went into your flower beds and the silver that went into your sleeves. Her face goes gray, which is confession enough for everyone watching. So she does the desperate thing, swings a palm at my face to break the new king in public. Nobody sees what I do. Honestly, it barely qualifies as a move. One finger to her shoulder point, a thread of needle-fine chi inside, and every meridian in that arm locks and shatters like frozen pipe. No mark, no blood. Her arm just stops being an arm. She hits the ground, screaming. The courtyard goes silent as a held breath. I wipe my fingertip with a silk handkerchief, slowly, so the message lands, and go back up the steps. This manner doesn't feed the useless, I tell the crowd, and it doesn't feed the dirty. Past sins, forgiven. Future ones, I'll break what sinned. Then I turn to Sun Mei Shin and hand her the gavel. Madam, your verdict? She looks at me with open worship. Cruelty plus courtesy is apparently her exact love language, and issues a sentence so Madam Lin, it loops back around to poetry. Take her away, take the other hand too, and throw her out of the manor. Note what's missing from that sentence. For the first time in recorded history, nobody's being made into fertilizer. The flowers will simply have to eat store-bought. Growth. Up in the attic, a white curtain twitches. Lin Xiaoqing, watching her mother obey the compost, knuckles white on the windowsill. Her letter suddenly feels less like a rescue plan and more like a mistake she can't unmail. And right then a gate guard sprints in, tripping over his own feet. Madam, Mr. Shu, a boat at the dock, flying the Song flag. The Song family. Local royalty of the lake, Madam Lin's in-laws, famous across the martial world for one slogan. Return your own technique to you. Southern Song, Northern Xiaozhan. That's the tier of brand we're talking about. The staff panics. I ask how many came. 2, says the guard. 2, I repeat. Open the gates, serve tea. The pair that walks in to meet me is a comedy duo with sword privileges. The tall thin one is He Kanghai, a professional contrarian whose whole personality is saying no, no, no and finding fault with everything, currently reviewing my camellias like a food critic in enemy territory. The bearded slab behind him is Gao Tiekshong, a man so addicted to fighting, he walks like he's already mid-brawl. I like them both immediately, in the way I like well-made tools. They came, officially, because young Miss Xiaoqing's letter worried their young master. Unofficially, their eyes are lasered on me, the mysterious flower farmer from the letter. He Kanghai opens with his signature move. No, these camellias are overrated. So I compliment his botanical insight, and the man short-circuits. He has a lifetime of comebacks prepared for disagreement and absolutely nothing for praise. He recovers enough to demand who I am and why I'm speaking at all. Sun Mei Shin answers for me by taking my arm in front of both of them, and then I answer the rest. From this day, Mantuo Villa has no connection to the Song family. This is my home. Your madam is my woman. What business are my family matters to your young master's reputation? Somewhere upstairs, Lin Xiaoqing nearly bites through her handkerchief. Her rescue letter has just detonated as a declaration of independence. Mother didn't get rescued from the intruder. Mother introduced the intruder as the household. Gao Tieshong draws his saber, delighted to finally reach his favorite part of any conversation. I'll clean house for the Song family, he announces, meaning my head. I look at the flower beds around us and sigh. Fine, I say, but here, on the stones, so we don't trample Madam's flowers. The man turns liver-colored. He's a lifelong fight junkie, and I just triaged his life's work below gardening. What follows is less a duel than a dance lesson where one partner doesn't know he's the student. He unloads decades of hard-won sabercraft. I stroll through it holding Sun Mei Shin's waist, moving us half a step at a time, always exactly the half step his blade wasn't. His chi carves the railings to gravel. My robe never flutters. He Kung Hai yells advice. The kid's footwork is hexagram-based. Stop feeding him momentum, which is very perceptive and gets ignored, because Gao Tiekshong has entered the red mist. So he compresses everything he owns into one final drilling thrust. The pride move, sword and man as one screaming line. I meet it with 2 fingers, not on the blade, beside it. One tiny pluck at the spinning chi, the way you'd pluck a zither string, adding a hair of pull in the direction it already spins. His own force jackknifes. The blade whips around in an arc geometry shouldn't allow and buries itself in his own shoulder. Silence, blood. And on 2 faces, he Kung Hai's and, up in the attic, Lin Xiaoqing's, the same horrified recognition. That was their family's sacred art. Except theirs returns force. Mine just showed force the door and let it walk into a wall. Not a counter, a correction. Who are you? Gao Tiekshong croaks from his knees. How do you know song arts? I take Sun Mei Shen's hand and turn for the pavilion. Tell Song Yichen his aunt's estate is under new rules, I say over my shoulder. And this wasn't your star shifting. This was mine. While I'm at it, I hand He Kung Hai his parting gift too. Your whole art is built on negating others, sir. That's why one compliment breaks you. Something to meditate on. They leave supporting each other like 2 survivors of separate disasters. In the attic, Lin Xiaoqing slides down the wall to the floor. Her reinforcements lasted 1 pot of tea, and she's just realized what she actually mailed her cousin. Not a rescue request, a war. We get 1 afternoon of peace, which around here is apparently the maximum dosage. A maid comes running with a silver arrow. Thin shaft, purple fletching, note tied on with red silk, found buried in Lin Xiaoqing's window frame. The note is a masterpiece of the genre. Sun Mei Shin, you slut. You stole my man and bore his bastard. In 3 days, I take your life and your daughters on Taihu Lake. Signed with a single character. Sun Mei Shin reads it and turns to porcelain. Mei Li Hua, she whispers. The Asura blade. Ah, yes. Because when a man like Chen Haoran tours the country breaking hearts, the wreckage forms a support group, and this alumna went the knife route. 20 years in a mountain valley, sharpening a blade and a grudge in parallel. And here's the beautiful, horrible detail I have to explain to my trembling lady. The arrow isn't even aimed at the right child. Mei Li Hua has never met Lin Xiaoqing. She just knows her rival bore the prince a daughter, so daughter equals target. The girl is about to die for a footnote in her parents' romance. We find Lin Xiaoqing curled in the corner of her bed, staring at the arrow hole in her window like it's an eye. When she sees her mother, she sobs. When she sees me behind her mother, the sob switches off and the hate switches on. This is your fault, she screams, throwing a pillow at my head. Before you came, none of this. I let the pillow miss and crouch to her eye level. This arrow launched 20 years ago, I tell her. The night your mother fell for a man who collects women like seals collect fish. It's been in the air your whole life. Today it landed. I just happened to be standing here when it did. She goes quiet. Because she's brilliant, and brilliant people can't unsee arithmetic. Your cousin would avenge you, I continue, loudly, making sure all the world knew the Song family honor was defended and, incidentally, that his aunt had a bastard with the Dali royal house. He'd be protecting the family name. Nobody in that plan protects you. And I can, I say standing, but I don't run a charity. From tomorrow, forget the cousin, forget the dead books. Learn from me. Get strong enough that the next arrow gets embarrassed and turns around. At the door, I leave her the knife to chew on all night. Decide by dawn, Miss Lin. Stay a canary someone has to cage for its own safety, or learn to be the thing Hawks apologize to. Then I tell Sun Mei Shin to seal the manor. Asura Blade wants a meeting in 3 days. We'll give her one. Lin Xiaoqing doesn't sleep. I know because the system's emotion radar paints her window all night. Pride cracking, cracking, cracked. At dawn, she walks out of the attic she hasn't meaningfully left in 18 years, carrying the single most beginner book in the entire legendary library, Basic Breathing Techniques. I watch her cross the courtyard in yesterday's wrinkled dress, and I already know what she's chosen, and I make my face give her nothing, because this walk has to be all hers. She kneels in front of my entire breakfast service and lowers a forehead that has never lowered for anyone. Please teach me, sir. Sun Mei Shin's chopsticks freeze midair. The servants stop breathing. The famous fairy sister of the South on her knees to the ex-fertilizer. I don't help her up. Kindness now would refund the whole lesson. Instead, I turn to Sun Mei Shin and place an order that makes both women blink. Madam, ready a boat for tonight, and bring me the largest bronze mirror in the manor. A mirror, she repeats. Tonight, I say, Taihu Lake is going to show the Asura Blade her own face. 20 years overdue for a look. Midnight on the lake, no lanterns, 1 small boat, 3 passengers, and a 7-foot bronze mirror standing at the bow under black cloth like a tombstone with stage fright. Lin Xiaoqing huddles in the cabin, clutching her breathing manual. Sun Mei Shin sits beside her, jaw tight, eyes on me. And I stand at the bow doing my best impression of a man who booked this lake for a private event. Which, in fairness, I did. The tearing silk sound of a fast haul reaches me right on schedule. A second boat knives out of the dark, and I get my first look at the guest of honor. A woman in black, 40-something, face pale as something kept out of the sun for 2 decades, eyes with nothing human left in the windows. In her hand, a long, thin blade with a red sheen. Mei Li Hua, the Asura blade, in person. "Sun Mei Shin!" she screams across the water, voice like an owl with a grievance. 20 years and you finally crawl out of your shell. My lady starts to fire back, and I mute her with one sentence. "Madam, arguing with a ghost who lives in an old dream lowers your property value." She swallows it. Progress. Getting no rise out of her rival, Mei Li Hua retargets, onto the girl. "So that's the bastard you bore him. I'll kill the little one first." She's airborne before the sentence ends, blade a red line aimed at Lin Shaoqing's throat, 20 years of practice compressed into one gorgeous, unstoppable arc. I don't draw anything. I don't even turn around. I flick the black cloth off the mirror. Moonlight hits polished bronze. And a flying woman gets, mid-lunge, a full-length portrait of herself. She stops. In the air. I didn't know that was possible either. Because here's the thing about spending 20 years as a revenge project. You never once look at yourself. In her head, she's still the bright girl who rode through the mountains with her prince. The mirror is showing her a gray-faced wraith with murder for a face. And the two images cannot both be her, and yet. "You didn't come to kill Sun Mei Shin," I say into the silence, and the lake carries every word. "You came to kill the woman in the mirror, the one who wasted her one life waiting to be avenged. Look at her. That's the only enemy you've ever had." The Asura blade, terror of the south, 3 days on the calendar to double homicide, drops her sword into the lake, falls out of the sky onto her own deck, and comes apart. Not wounded, unmade. The knife was fine. The hate holding the knife just died of eye contact. I hop across to her boat, land soft as a settling leaf, and crouch next to the wreckage of her. 2 options, I tell her. The lake is right there, cold and honest, if you want to follow your old self down. Or, forget the prince, forget the blade, forget the name. Follow me and learn how I kill without touching anything. Your call. A long silence. Then, from under the tangled hair, number 2. I touch one finger to her brow and feed her a thread of pure, life-warming chi from a longevity manual I inhaled yesterday. The system shows me the receipts in real time. A rotten red karma thread snapping off her, a pale gold one lassoing my wrist. Another creditor converted into a dependent. My ledger doesn't shrink around here, it just changes fonts. We row home in convoy, her boat trailing ours like a shadow learning to heal. Sun Mei Shin watches her lifelong nightmare follow us meekly across the water, and I can see her doing frightening math about what exactly she's fallen in love with. And in the cabin, Lin Shaoqing stares at me with her worldview in shrapnel. Because tonight, she learned the top end of the power curve isn't a stronger sword. It's a mirror and 11 sentences. Back at the dock, I hand out room assignments like a hotel manager. The assassin gets a quiet chamber and 3 meals a day, delivered personally by Sun Mei Shin. Yes, by her lifelong rival. That's not cruelty, that's the treatment plan for both of them. And the girl gets told, Water Pavilion, dawn, first lesson. Then I walk to the Jade Cave to shelve a few more secs into my skull, and halfway there the night goes wrong. Not a sound, not a smell, a pressure, from very far south, like a pair of eyes opening in a sealed coffin and finding me across 1,000 miles of dark. The system stamps a formal notice over the feeling. Red dust tribulation, first bell. Chen Li has sensed you, leader of the 4 great evils, the crownless crown prince of Dali. If Mei Li Hua's hatred was a bonfire, this thing on the horizon is a glacier with opinions. I stand in the cave mouth until the pressure fades, then keep walking. They're coming fast, I tell the dark, and the dark doesn't argue. Fine, let's go read faster. The next days settle into the strangest domestic rhythm of my 2 lives. Deep in the cave, I speedrun the martial heritage of an entire civilization, and the system doesn't read technique, it reads people. I open the Tianshan plum blossom hands, and instead of diagrams, I get a woman on a snow peak, every strike of her masterpiece asking one question: why won't you look at me? I open white rainbow palm and taste the wine another woman drank to survive her own wedding to the wrong life. This whole sex library is one 3-generation heartbreak with footnotes. I file that away. Heartbreak this well documented is always load-bearing. Out in the courtyard, Lin Shaoqing stands in horse stance from dawn to moonrise. Just stands. The single most overqualified beginner in history. Legs shaking, sweat pooling, pride grinding against gravity. Every hour she doesn't quit surprises me a little more. Somewhere past midnight of the first night, a thread of true chi finally sparks in her core. Her first ever, self-made, unborrowed. In the cave, I feel my own mouth smile without permission. And in a quiet room, Sun Mei Shin delivers rice to Mei Li Hua in silence. 2 ruined women on opposite sides of a tray, hating the same man in increasingly compatible ways. 3 whole days of this, an actual routine, which is of course when the fist hits the front gate. Jiang Sun Mei Shin's voice, sharp with alarm, cutting all the way into the cave. Soldiers, the manor is surrounded! I arrive at the gate to find 30 government troops, halberds, warrants, the works. Leading them, a constable named Joe, 40, weathered, sword hilt wrapped in rope that's seen blood. My kind of opponent, a professional. He unrolls an official scroll and reads me the charges. Mantuo Villa stands accused of harboring a dangerous fugitive and running a private water dungeon. Sealed for search by order of the prefecture. Sun Mei-shin goes full aristocrat. Who dares? On whose word? And gets exactly nowhere, because you can't outglare paperwork. Swords come half out of sheaths, and I watch her discover, in real time, the one enemy her whip has no answer for: bureaucracy. So I step in and introduce myself as the man who handles the estate's affairs. And then I hand Constable Joe a very personal gift: perspective. "Constable," I say quietly, walking him a few steps aside, "someone filed this complaint. If the search finds a fugitive, the credit goes to the prefect and whoever whispered in his ear. If it finds nothing, who signed the seizure of a household related by marriage to two great families? Not the whisperer. You. The name on the report is always the neck in the noose." I watch him do the math. Yesterday, a song steward visited the prefect. Today, there's a warrant. He knows exactly whose glove he's being worn as. Then I sweeten it, a priceless orchid slipped into his sleeve, the kind worth a street of houses, and offer the compromise he's now desperate for. A symbolic walkthrough. Two trusted men, nobody disturbs the ladies. The fugitive has obviously already fled. Everyone reports diligence and goes home alive. He agrees so fast the orchid barely finishes landing. And right as the man exhales, right as the search party turns to leave, a soldier runs up and murders the whole arrangement with one report. A boat's been found drifting by the shore. On it, a woman's corpse. In her hand, a strange thin blade. A dead woman, a thin blade. 3 days after the Asura blade publicly threatened this house. Every head on that dock turns to me in perfect unison, and Constable Joe's face performs the entire journey from relief to damnation without a single stop. Because our actual Asura blade is alive, eating rice in a quiet room 40 paces away. Which means someone manufactured a corpse, dressed it as the assassin, and parked it on our doorstep at the exact hour the law came calling. One move behind the visible move. Song Yi-chen says hello. The correct response to a trap this tight is panic, so obviously I volunteer us to inspect the body. On the beach, under a straw mat, lies a woman in black with her throat opened. Constable Joe looks at her, looks at me, and asks, with the voice of a man already drafting his own confession, how I explain this. I don't explain, I teach. Publicly, loudly, one finger at a time. 1. The wound. The Asura blade was famous for kills clean as glass. This throat was sawed by an amateur with a dull edge. That's not a duel, that's a butcher's audition. 2. The blade in her hand. Dull gray, smith shop stock. The real Asura blade splits hairs mid-air. This one would lose a fight with tofu. 3, and my personal favorite, her grip. A person dying of a cut throat claws, thrashes, bleeds under the fingernails. Her nails are clean and her fist is welded shut around that hilt. Corpses don't hold props this professionally. Someone folded her fingers after the fact, like a florist arranging a bouquet. A fake assassin, killed by a fake method, holding a fake weapon, I announced to the crowd of soldiers and fishermen. Constable, do you still need my explanation, or shall we ask who lost an actress? And then I lean down and flip the black cloth off the dead woman's face. On her forehead, small and clear, a brand. A swallow, wings spread. The sigil of Swallow Dock. The Song family's own mark stamped on their own sacrificed maid, because somebody wanted this frame so airtight he signed it. The beach makes a sound like a kettle coming off the boil. Constable Joe stares at that swallow and understands the full shape of his day. The family that hired his prefect just tried to make him the executioner in a scheme with their logo on it. He's drowning, so I toss him the rope. Don't judge this case, I tell him. Promote it. A murdered servant of the great Song family. That's not constable business. That's prefecture business. Criminal circuit business. Seal the scene, report upward, collect the credit for diligence, and let the big fish bite each other. The man bows to me. An armed government official, bowing to last week's fertilizer. He starts barking orders. Seal the beach, send riders, and for 1 whole minute the day looks salvageable. Then a maid arrives from the manor at a dead sprint, face the color of paper. Sir, madam, the guest in the quiet room, Miss Chin, she's dead. She killed herself. I'll say this for Song Yi-chen. The man doesn't do single-layer schemes. The corpse on the beach was the loud move, designed to eat everyone's attention. The real blade went in quiet, into our own guest wing. Except I've met our house guests' despair personally, and I closed that account on the lake. So while the household panics, I walk to the quiet room with the unhurried stride of a man checking on an investment. Inside, I find a woman in black, slumped at the dressing table, jade hairpin through the heart, blood pooled and dark. Beside her, a suicide note in delicate brushwork, packed with grievances only last night's lake duel participants could know. Someone did their homework on my household. Sun Mei-shin gasps, those are Mei Li Hua's clothes. Constable Joe, who followed us in, ages a decade in my doorway. I don't touch the body. I hand the note to my student, Zhao Qing. Read it. What do you see? And here's where 3 days of standing in a courtyard start paying dividends nobody expected. She steadies her breathing, leans in, and works the problem. The handwriting is a woman's, she says slowly, but the strokes have sword callus in them. Then, closer, pine soot ink, scholar's ink, expensive, and it's still damp. Still damp, I agree, and point at the blood on the floor. Dried black, edges set, an hour-old minimum. So our suicide wrote her farewell note half an hour after she finished dying. Remarkable discipline. I walk the room and hand out the rest. The corpse's hands are rough-knuckled and calloused from oars, not from a thin blade. A boatwoman, not a swordswoman. Killed elsewhere, dressed in our guests' spare clothes, posed at the mirror, note planted fresh because the first corpse got debunked faster than they'd planned, and somebody had to improvise in a hurry. 2 bodies in 1 morning. Fake Mei Li Hua by the lake for the law, fake Mei Li Hua in the guest room for the ledger, and if either had stuck, this estate would currently be a crime scene with me as the exhibit. So we escalate. I send Sun Mei Xin to the prefecture, loudly, publicly, with the full Madame Lin production values, to file charges. The Song family sent assassins into Mantuo Villa, and the assassins died on the job. By noon, half of Suzhou is chewing on it. Then I whisper a set of stage directions into Constable Zhou's ear that turn his face gray, and he leaves at a run. And that afternoon, right on cue, the door announces the 3rd act. Mr. Bao of Swallow Dock requests an audience. He Kung-hai walks in wearing the strut of a man whose team is winning a game he thinks I haven't noticed we're playing. He asks, oily as lamp fat, whether the murderer troubling our poor estate has been caught yet. He gets 2 answers. First, from Sun Mei Xin, who pivots on him with operatic fury. Your assassination failed and you dare show your face. You left a corpse in my house. And while he's sputtering, no, no, no at that, the second answer walks through the gate with 30 armed men. Constable Zhou, back straight, voice bronze, an entirely new man. By order of the prefecture, where is Madame Lin who reported the crime? I'm here to seal the scene and arrest the culprits. I watch He Konghai's face as the script he memorized bursts into flames. The law was supposed to arrive as Song's glove. It arrived as ours. Madame Lin points a jeweled finger at him. There's the accomplice, Constable, a Song retainer, come to check on his handiwork. Zhou's men draw steel. And when He Konghai plays the family name, do you know who my young master is, Constable Zhou? Fresh from this morning's masterclass in whose neck goes in which noose, delivers the line of his career. Even a prince answers to the law, let alone a retainer. The invitation that breaks him comes from me, though, offered gently, like dessert. Mr. Bao, come with us to the quiet room. Identify the body. In front of everyone. Tell the officials whether the dead woman is a dangerous assassin or somebody's maid from Swallow Dock who didn't know the rules. He can't go. Identifying her convicts his master. He can't refuse. Refusing convicts his master. I watch a professional contrarian meet the one question with no, 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 no in it, and his legs give out on the spot. And then, because the universe has decided today is theater day, the doors bang open one more time. A young maid strides in with a burly servant behind her, and the servant is carrying a body over his shoulder. The maid is Xiao Hui of the Song household. She curtsies prettily to the law and announces, "You've arrested the wrong people. My poor murdered sister was found in the reeds. Mantuo Villa killed her and staged everything." The servant drops the bundle. The cloth falls open. A second woman in black, identical clothes, identical build, same costume department. 2 matching corpses in one room, each side claiming the other one's fake. Constable Zhou makes a small sound like a stepped-on duck. The audience of soldiers and servants stops breathing entirely. And I start to laugh because Song Yichen, you beautiful, desperate perfectionist, you just did my job for me. 1 suspicious corpse is an accusation. 2 identical corpses is a confession that somebody's running a corpse supply chain. I don't even have to say it. My student says it for me. Lin Xiaoqing, 18 years old, 3 days into her education, steps forward and points at the fresh body's wrist where the sleeve slipped, at a tiny vermilion pinprick over the Waiguan point. Needle mark, she says clearly. That acupoint seals the meridians. This woman was paralyzed before she died. She didn't fall in a fight. She was prepared. Prepared, as in, the Song family poisoned their own maid into a mannequin before sending her to die on set, so she couldn't talk if captured. And then, when the plan wobbled, they hauled in the first maid's actual corpse as a counterprop. I lay the whole architecture out loud for the room. The spy maid, the lakeside decoy, the quiet room plant, the panic improvisation, each beat landing on He Konghai like a dropped beam. Somewhere in the middle of it, he coughs up blood and faints, which around me is becoming a genre. That's 1. Xiao Hui breaks down crying over her sister the props department used twice, and I close the show with a proposal that turns the room to stone. Move both bodies to the prefecture hall. Summon the coroners of the criminal circuit. Invite every notable family in Suzhou. Tomorrow at noon, a public autopsy, a public trial, everything in the sun. Southern Song lives on his reputation, so let's litigate it. In an amphitheater, Constable Zhou leaves glowing like a man who came for a routine framing and lucked into a career. The crowd disperses, buzzing, and Lin Shaoqing stands very still in the emptying courtyard, looking at me with an expression I'm starting to recognize. "We lost," she says softly. She means her cousin. "Cousin, you've lost so badly." There's something new under the shock in her voice. It takes me a second to name it because on her face, it's brand new. Appetite. We don't get to celebrate because a royal barge parks at our dock before dinner. Phoebe wood hull, gold trim, banner with the Chen royal crest snapping in the wind. The steward announces that His Highness the Prince of Jianan has come in person to visit Madam. Round 2. Except this time, the man brought a ship the size of a street, because nothing says I've reflected on my behavior like arriving in a floating palace. Sun Mei-shin's hand goes ice cold in mine, so I hold it and remind her of the standings. 18 years ago, you were his woman, I say. Today, you're mine, which means the person who should be nervous on that dock is him. Watching this woman inflate back to full pressure is genuinely one of the perks of the job. She grips my hand, lifts her chin, and marches us down to the water like we're the ones doing the visiting. The prince comes down the gangway, glowing with rehearsed longing. Mei-shin, I came to see you, arms already opening for the reunion embrace he's been storyboarding all the way from Dali. The arms freeze at half-mast, because she's holding my hand. In public. At the angle specifically calibrated for his viewing. Who is this, he asks, and the princely graciousness is already curdling at the edges. She doesn't answer. She looks at him, really looks, maybe for the first time in 18 years, and I can feel through her palm the exact moment the old poison fails to fire. Then she takes half a step sideways, putting her shoulder in front of me, shielding me from a grandmaster, with her body. "Chen Yang," she says, in the tone you use for a stranger holding a clipboard. "He's mine, and my affairs stopped being your business a long time ago." I want to frame this man's face. 50 years of being the lever, never the left. Whole provinces of women taught themselves to hate him just to keep him in their lives. And this one, the maddest, most faithful flame in the collection, just filed him under solved. He breaks, roars my death sentence, and this time there's no discipline in the finger he raises. The yi-yang finger comes out at 70%, apricot gold, air screaming, the genuine article aimed at my skull. I take one small step to the left. That's it. That's the whole technique. His royal beam of annihilation parts my hair with its breeze and drills a smoking, finger-wide hole through the dock behind me. Silence, except for the charred wood ticking. "Your Highness," I say into his stunned face, magnificent finger. But there's too much heartbreak in it these days. All force, no purity. You've gotten worse since your prime. The ladies would be so disappointed. He lunges again, and this time it's Sun Mei-shin who stops the war by planting herself between us, arms spread, and informing the father of her child that if he touches me, Mantuo Villa will be his grave. The look on his face isn't rage anymore, it's bereavement, and because heaven runs its comedy on my schedule this month, that's when the reinforcements arrive. 2 more boats, 2 more women, and I don't even have to check the files. I know both from the original story. Kui Huan Huan, soft, teary, sweet as syrup, the mistress from Wanjie Valley. Luo Ningxiang, sharp-eyed, flute at her belt, the smart one of the collection. Both raced here upon hearing their brother Ran was in the area, and both walked straight into the crime scene of his dignity. The prince, bleeding status by the second, tries to reassert command. Mei-shin, enough scenes, we'll talk at home, and my lady doesn't even look at him. She looks at his mistresses and issues a hostess's verdict. "Sisters, the villa is closed today. Long trip. Go home." That's when I add the flourish. Nothing loud. I just reach over and tuck a windblown strand of hair behind Sun Mei-shin's ear. Slow, domestic, ownership rendered in one gesture. The prince makes a sound like a kettle and vomits blood onto his gold brocade. That's 2. My body count remains 0. My word count is climbing. And before anyone can exhale, the night produces one more boat. Small, fast, aimed at us like a crossbow bolt. On its bow, a girl in black with a veiled hat and a crescent moon sword, radiating one single legible emotion. Everyone here dies. The prince's face cycles to a fresh shade of doom. He recognizes the blade style, Mei Lihua's disciple, which makes her, by arithmetic nobody's told the poor girl, one more of his daughters. Ba Yanhong. The whole family's here. It's basically a reunion, if reunions were armed. She hits the dock like a thrown knife, sword already singing for the prince's throat, and he's so emotionally wrecked he barely parries. His guards scramble, the mistresses scream. I say 2 words, "Girl, wait." And then I ask her the question no one in her 20 years of training ever asked. "That strike, is it for you or for your mother?" The sword stops 3 inches from royal flesh, trembles, because she doesn't know. She's never known. She was raised as ammunition, her mother's hatred, given legs and a blade, fired at a target she's never met for a crime that predates her. And no ammunition ever gets asked what it wants. "Second question," I say, softer. "Your teacher is stronger than he is. 20 years she trained you to kill him. Why did she never once come to it herself?" I watch that question go through her like ice water through a wall. Because the answer, the obvious, 20 years obvious answer is that her mother never wanted him dead, wanted the hate, needed the hate. The hate was the last piece of him she owned, and the girl's entire life has been kindling for a fire her mother was keeping warm. The crescent sword hits the dock with a sound like a dropped bell. Hua Yanhong folds down after it, hands over her face, and cries the way you cry when your reason for existing turns out to be someone else's coping mechanism. The dock is a museum of ruined people now. A prince coughing blood, one mistress weeping, another gone gray with calculation, an assassin dissolving on the boards, and my system quietly threading one more pale line from the crying girl to my wrist. The collection grows. The interest compounds. I clap my hands once, pleasantly, host to guests. It's windy out, I announce. Everyone inside for tea. We clearly have so much to talk about. Watching them all flinch at the word tea is the most fun I've had since I died. The tea is served in the water pavilion, and the seating chart alone constitutes a war crime. Me in the master seat, Sun Lei Shin pressed to my side, radiant, pouring for me like we're 40 years married. The prince placed to my left, one step down, which for a royal is roughly equivalent to being seated in the harbor, and his 3 women arranged around him in a crescent, so that everywhere he looks, a chapter of his own biography looks back. Sun Mei Shin runs the first knife in herself. I remember you loved this tea, Chen Yang, she says warmly, then turns to me without waiting for his answer and asks, sugar-voiced, whether it's as good as the tea she brews me at home. I sip and say the water's slightly undercooked, nothing like her private blend. Domesticity as a dueling weapon. The prince coughs blood into his cup. Still 2. No, we'll call that 2.5. And then I do the thing nobody at the table expects. I get kind. I refill Hua Yanhong's cup with my own hands and tell her the mountain spring water here calms the nerves. I look at Cui Huan and name her thing precisely. Devotion. Aimed at a man who files devotion under inventory. At Luo Ningxiang, cleverness spent playing supporting cast in someone else's romance. At Hua Yanhong, a childhood mulched into a weapon. One by one, gently, like a doctor reading charts at the foot of each bed. Your Highness, I say finally, turning to the gray-faced prince. You sowed all of this, and these debts don't expire. Today they found my house. Tomorrow they'll find your palace. There will always be another boat, another blade, another woman with your name burned into her worst decade. You can't outrun it. But I'll offer you a trade. He looks up with the eyes of a man being offered water in a desert and suspecting it's vinegar. I'll take them, I say. All of it. The love, the hate, the grudges, the daughters with swords. Every debt attached to your name in this pavilion transfers to mine. They'll forget you. I'll make sure of it. Complete amnesty for your heart. And the price? He rasps. Small, I say. Say one sentence in front of them. Say, in matters of love, I, Chen Haoran, lost. Lost to a flower farmer. Watch the trap from his side. Refuse and stay legally responsible for 4 walking volcanoes for the rest of his life. Accept, and the world's #1 romantic admits, before his entire gallery, that his life's one art was beaten by a gardener. The pavilion holds its breath for a very long time. Then, the great prince of Zhenan rises, steadies himself on the table, looks at Sun Mei Shin one final time, and pays. I lost, he says. The words come out like teeth. He leaves supported by his retainers, a coat with no man left in it. Cui Huan weeps. Luo Ningxiang closes her eyes and lets one tear fall on her flute. Sun Mei Shin laughs, one long, ringing, terrible laugh that took 18 years to bake. And I sip my tea and note for the ledger that I have just acquired 4 emotionally catastrophic women in one transaction. And the system considers this an asset. My golden finger and I need to have a conversation about its portfolio strategy. Before the prince's wake is even cold, a clear voice cuts through the pavilion. Sir, Xiao Qing also wishes to make a deal. The girl walks out of the flower shadows where she's been watching the whole execution, and her mother's face curdles instantly. Sun Mei Shin does not love sharing my attention, least of all with the daughter who's younger, brilliant, and carries the prince's blood. Go back to your rooms, she snaps. Lin Xiaoqing, for the first time in her life, answers back, my affairs are my own, mother. You can hear the household hierarchy crack in real time. Her offer is her whole fortune. 3,742 manuals memorized. Origins, variants, weaknesses of every art alive. All of it on the table, in exchange for learning the thing I do. Not moves, she says, not inner arts. The Tao you used on Prince Chen and Miss Mu. And every woman in that pavilion goes cold, because they've just realized what the shy bookworm actually asked for. Not protection, not revenge. The steering wheel. The library's worthless to me, I tell her honestly, because I've already read it. And my Tao can't be taught, only grasped. But since you brought sincerity, here's your entrance exam. I gesture at the 3 shipwrecked women around the cold tea. They came for a prince. The prince is gone. The devotion, the cleverness, the hatred, all still here. And now they're my problem. Solve them. Tell me what to do with these 3. Impress me, and you can enter my gate. Then I collect Sun Mei Shin and stroll off to bed, leaving 4 broken women and 1 overconfident genius locked in a pavilion with a single unsolvable homework problem. Cruel, educational. Sometimes those are the same wine in different cups. Predictably, she faceplants. I get the report later, and it's glorious. She offered Cui Huan a ticket home, to the home that's been a prison since the affair. Offered Luo Ningxiang gold and a quiet cottage, to a woman whose nightmare is quiet. Offered Hua Yanhong a guard job, to an assassin whose soul just died, essentially inviting her to become the estate's attack dog. Textbook answers from a girl who's read every textbook except the human one. Hua Yanhong tells her, with terrifying gentleness, that what she's offering isn't a way out, but a cage more humiliating than death. Luo Ningxiang vivisects her charity so precisely that the three victims bond into an alliance against their would-be savior. And the evening ends with the tutor being tutored by the homework. That's when my prepositioned piece moves. Granny Rui, the estate's most unflappable steward, glides in with a tray and room assignments I dictated hours ago. Warm, dry chambers and bird's nest porridge for Cui Huan, who's been frail since childhood. A lakeside pavilion with a gorgeous view and exactly one exit for Luo Ningxiang, hospitality and quarantine in one architectural gesture, since clever people plot less when they can be seen plotting. And for Hua Yanhong, the estate's bare meditation cell, no pity, no coddling, just the one thing a person whose reason for living collapsed actually needs: silence with walls around it. 3 arrangements, 3 keyholes, 3 keys. Lin Xiaoqing watches her impossible homework get solved in 90 seconds by a butler with a tray and understands the size of the gap between reading about people and reading people. And on the tray, one more item, a bamboo scroll, for her. 2 lines in my handwriting. To master others' hearts, first set down your own. Tomorrow at dawn, bring all 3 women to Langhuan Jade Cave, your first lesson. She doesn't sleep, obviously. I know because I check. My emotion radar paints her window all night like a storm chart. I've assigned her the impossible again. The 3 women now trust her about as much as a discount coffin. But somewhere past midnight, the scroll does its work. She stops rehearsing clever speeches and starts actually looking. She goes to Luo Ningxiang's pavilion at dawn and doesn't argue, just tells her the flute she played all night sounded like an empty heart asking directions, and admits her own answers yesterday were garbage because she never once asked what anyone wanted. Honesty. From the girl who's armored in erudition her whole life. Luo Ningxiang is so disarmed, she agrees to come just to see what kind of monster is renovating this child. Kui Zhuan she wins with one word, her daughter's name. Wu Xiaofang says maybe there's a road that leads back to her with her head high. Hua Yanhong she doesn't even try to persuade, just stands outside the sealed door, says you and I both had our worlds demolished this week, so in that we're sisters, leaves the invitation on the food tray, and walks away without waiting. At the hour of the dragon, all 3 stand at the cave mouth. I count heads from the terrace and permit myself one whole smug sip of tea. My canary is learning to hunt. There's just one problem waiting for them at the cave, and the problem is wearing a pomegranate red gown. Sun Mei Xin got there first, because Zhang Er said, "I'll teach your first lesson," she announces, which is technically a sentence I said, minus the context, plus a lot of jealousy with nowhere to go. What follows is the dark timeline version of my methods. She's watched me open people's hearts with a scalpel, so she grabs a cleaver. She parades through the cave, pulling manuals like a sommelier of cruelty, mocks Cui Zhuanhuan's backwater sword school, and calls her a roadside affair the prince tired of. Tells Luo Ningxiang her famous cleverness is just a courtesan's mask, and who could ever love a woman you have to stay vigilant around? And for Hua Yanhong, she skips the props entirely and goes straight for the wound. Your mother never loved you, girl. You were a tool she used to feel something. A pitiful, pathetic tool. Fire refining, I'll grant her, but she's refining a blade that's already at the snapping point. Hua Yanhong moves. Not at Sun Mei Xin. The crescent sword comes out and up against her own throat. If no one can give me a reason, she says, dead calm, then this cave gets my blood today. And there it is, the moment the whole week's been building without telling anyone. Sun Mei Xin barks a threat, which nearly finishes the job. Cui Wanwan screams. Luo Ningxiang, fast as she is, calculates she can't cross the room in time. Lin Xiaoqing doesn't calculate. She walks, straight up to the blade. And then, I get chills retelling this, she doesn't grab for it. She lays her hand over Hua Yanhong's grip, leans in and presses her own throat against the other side of the same edge. You wanted an answer bought with a life, she says quietly. Here, 2 lives, 1 blade. You die of despair, I die for my blindness, and the debt between us is square. We go together, or we both stay. A drop of blood slides down the steel. Hers, the pampered bookworm who fainted at butcher shops last week, and the sword falls. Hua Yanhong crumples, and the crying that comes out of her this time is a different species, not grief, but thaw. Lin Xiaoqing stands over her with a red line on her white throat, swaying slightly, and my heart does something I officially deny. I step out of the shadows, where I've been the whole time. Of course I've been there the whole time, and settle the room with one verdict, to Sun Mei Shin, before the humiliation can turn her volcanic. Madam, you gave them fire, and steel does need fire, but fire alone makes brittle blades. She just gave them the quench. Fire and water, both indispensable. My lady gets to be indispensable instead of upstaged, which diffuses her by half. Politics is mostly just choosing the flattering synonym. To Lin Xiaoqing I say, now your first lesson is complete. And then, because tuition here is steep, I hand out the second. Deep in the cave, past the shelves, I show them the marble platform and the wall of weapons, and I give them the only martial arts lecture I know. All 3,742 manuals in this cave are just human wanting, written down. Sword is the wish to protect. Saber is the wish to decide. The judge's brush wants to sentence. The abacus wants to count what's owed. The embroidery needle wants to kill quietly and be home for dinner. Read the want, and the technique is a footnote. Then the assignment. Xiaoqing will choose from this entire arsenal of frozen desires one path for each of the three. Truth for the clever one, standing for the soft one, living for the hollow one. Not what fits my convenience, what each of them actually, secretly needs. And because no gift of mine ships without a hook, from today, I announce, this cave is their home until each path bears fruit. The library is now a cocoon, and Xiaoqing, you're the jailer. The word lands on her like a wet cloak. The three women stare at their new warden with fresh betrayal. Sun Mei Shin smirks, and my student learns the tax bracket of power. Every throne is also a post you're chained to. For the record, she passes this exam too, and it takes her one afternoon. For Cui Wan Chuan, a nameless booklet with an old pine on the cover, pure root and stance work, the art of standing so deep in your own ground that no wind moves you. You are your own, she tells the woman who spent her life being someone's. For Luo Ningxiang, a sword manual played through a flute, emotion as blade intent, cleverness finally aimed inward at the question of what's true. The clever one reads the first page and goes pale with hunger. Sun Mei Shin tries to snatch that scroll out of jealousy, purest reflex, and my student judo flips even that. Keep it for us, mother, and teach it yourself once your heart is settled enough to pass its truth test, in front of everyone. The scroll's opening line is if the heart is false, the sword rebounds. Her mother stands there holding a manual that just called her bluff, then hurls it at Luo Ningxiang and storms out. I make a note to apply comfort before the volcano files a complaint, and for Huayan Hong, nothing off the shelves at all. Xiaoqing walks past 1,200 sword manuals to the junk corner and comes back with a gardener's carving knife, short, nicked, handle worn smooth by honest work. Every blade you've held was your mother's, she tells her. This one's yours. It doesn't take life. It makes things. Carve a mountain. Carve a bird. Carve until the knife stops being a grave and starts being a hand. The assassin stares at the humble little blade for a long, long time. Then she asks the question that's going to quietly run the rest of this story. Can it really make flowers bloom? That night, Sun Mei Shin comes to my rooms with the leftover jealousy from the cave, and after I've applied the standard treatment, which is none of your business, but the camellias bloomed again, she makes her pitch in the dark, sweet as poisoned plums. Jiang kill Song Yichen for me. Her logic is even sound, in a scorpion way. The nephew is Xiaoqing's heart demon, and as long as he breathes, the girl's loyalty has a back door. Also, and she doesn't say this part, a man who's murdered for her can never leave her. She wants me blood-welded to this house. Killing him is the gardener's answer, I tell her, and I say it kindly because she is, at core, a very dangerous gardener. Rip out the weed, the root stays, everything regrows by spring. No, we're not going to kill your nephew. We're going to let Xiaoqing watch him. Watch him lie, sell, grovel, and spend her like currency until she takes the sharpest blade in this house and cuts him out of her own heart herself. No scar tissue, no martyr, no back door. I feel her shiver against me, and it's not fear. You're a devil, she breathes, delighted. A craftsman, I correct. Song Yichen is just the whetstone I'm sharpening her on. She falls asleep smiling, like a cat in a dairy, and I lie awake, because far to the north, at the edge of what my senses can reach, something old stirs, a chessboard that's been jammed for 30 years, and a dry voice sighing across mountains. The Zhenlong puzzle, the Zhenlong puzzle. Who will solve it for me? Not my debt, not yet, but the ledger hears everything, and I could swear it just added a placeholder line. The prince, meanwhile, does not know how to stay defeated. 2 days later, the lookouts count a dozen warships coming up the lake under the Chen banner, and the man himself lands with an honor guard, gifts, and the entire toolkit of a 50-year winning streak: contrition, warmth, patience, jewelry. His plan, transparently, last time she was angry. Anger is love with the lid on. Apply steady heat. Sun Mei Shin meets him on the dock in full battle regalia, and opens with a line I want engraved somewhere. She glances past him at the gift chests and porters and remarks to her steward, "Look at that. The guests haven't even been received, and the funeral procession's already assembled." I nearly applaud from the flower path. My influence, and I say this with pride, has not made this woman kinder. He weathers it. He weathers Prince of Jinan instead of Chen Yang. He weathers what business brings your highness. He even weathers the news that his two missing mistresses are meditating in our guest wing. He plays every card in the deck, and then she shows him the one card he doesn't have. Your highness keeps knocking on an inn, she says pleasantly, expecting his old room to be free. Nobody told you. The inn has changed owners. And on cue, because I do love a cue, I stroll out of the flower path, wrap an arm around her waist in front of his entire honor guard, and introduce myself. Su Jung-yu, the lady's husband. This is the small matter of our 3 feet of land, your highness. Yours ends at the waterline. Husband. The word hits him harder than the finger duel did. He cycles from white to green to purple. The Grandmaster Chi comes up off him like heat haze. His palm rises for the kill he's owed himself for days, and a girl's voice from the path freezes the entire dock. Father? Mother? What are you doing? Lin Shaoqing, arriving with the world's most weaponized innocence. And the great romantic's palm hangs in the air, because the one audience he cannot bear to be a monster in front of is the daughter he's never once protected. I use the pause to walk myself between his raised hand and the girl, not fast, just placed, like furniture, with my back to the death and my face to her. The message reads in every direction at once. To her, you're covered. To him, through me first. To the dock at large, this manor has exactly one master. His hand comes down empty. He laughs, the small, terrible laugh of a man hearing his own obituary, orders his fleet about, and sails away from the graveyard of his greatest hits. Shaoqing stares at me with an expression that's becoming a whole climate system. And because comfort isn't the curriculum, I hand her the follow-up assignment while the sails are still shrinking. Go to the cave, tell the ladies their savior came, and went. The message lands in the cave like a dropped torch. Cui Xuanhuan's last fantasy, the prince bursting in to carry her off, dies with a whimper. Hua Yanhong carves one deep, decisive stroke into her practice wood, and it looks suspiciously like a farewell. And Luo Ningxiang, who watches my student deliver all this with a face like frost on glass, pays her the compliment of an honest warning. He's using you too, girl. When your cleverness stops matching his plans, where do you think you'll land? That thorn goes in deep. I know because of what my student does with it. She doesn't come to me. She doesn't sulk. She sits in the cave for 3 days reading estate ledgers of all things, and then bribes a delivery maid to smuggle a wooden swallow and a note to Swallow Dock. A forged distress call, engineered in 3 lines to hit every nerve Song Yi-chen owns. The villa has fallen to a low-born schemer. The treasure library is in his hands. Your property is being handled. Come and set things right. She rats me out to the biggest tiger on the lake. My model student, using my own doctrine, people move on their obsessions, to stress test her teacher against her cousin. If I win, her old world was truly worthless, and she's free. If he wins, the nightmare's over. Either way, she stops being furniture in someone else's plan. I find out, obviously. I find out roughly immediately. I don't stop the letter. I pour myself tea and think, finally. A student worth the tuition. And also, let's see the tiger's teeth. The teeth arrive at midnight, a week's worth of song grievance packed into a dozen black dragon boats that fan out silently and seal every waterway off the estate. Beautiful maneuvering, honestly. At their head stands Deng Baichuan, first of the 4 great retenders, granite made ambulatory, flanked by my old sparring partners He Kanghai and Gao Tiexong, both wearing bandages and vendetta. By order of our young master, Deng Baichuan announces across the water, "We've come to escort Miss Lin home and inquire after the changes in this household." Sun Mei Xin storms the dock, ready to spit fire, and I let her open, because her opening is the whole show. She publicly, formally, at volume, introduces me to the assembled navy as the sole male master of Mantuo Villa. She declares her daughter is in the cave repenting and receiving no visitors, and she severs relations with the Song family for the 2nd time this month, this time with witnesses in uniform. I stand beside her, radiating quiet pride, like a man whose attack dog just learned diplomacy. Gao Tiexong's patience, never his strongest organ, ruptures. He clears 30 feet of water in one leap, claws out, winds screaming, his famous storm fist, the real thing, aimed to fold me in half. I meet the most vicious strike of his life with the very first move every village boy learns. Wild horse parts its mane, one soft palm, angled just so. His fist sinks into my palm like a cannonball into a haystack. All that beautiful violence just files itself away through my sleeve. Then I let the borrowed logic of the thing turn him gently around and return him, spinning, to his own deck, where he sits down hard in front of his navy and stares at his hand like it betrayed the family. The dock goes very quiet, and I know exactly why. He Kanghai and Deng Baichuan both saw what I actually did. Not a counter. Not their sacred returning force art. Something underneath it, the raw principle their ancestors built the technique on top of, used casually, like a man borrowing a shovel. Steward Deng, I say into the silence, my flowers bruise easily, and your brothers keep falling on things. Take them home. And tell Song Yi-chen, if he's curious about the flowers of this estate, he's welcome to come drink tea with the flower farmer himself. Then, because messaging matters, tell him his queen is doing wonderfully here. I watch that sentence land on Deng Baichuan like a branding iron. They shove off. The lake swallows the dragon boats, And up at the cave mouth, Lin Xiaoqing watches her second set of reinforcements retreat and understands the actual result of her letter. She hasn't summoned a rescuer. She's delivered her cousin to my whetstone, Express. She comes to me that night holding the star-shifting manual like a peace offering, asks me to explain its true secrets, and hides a knife of purpose behind the humility. I know about the letter. She suspects I know. We perform the tea ceremony of mutual espionage, and then I answer her question for real, because the answer is the lesson. Tell me what star-shifting is, I say. Returning force to the sender, she recites. The finest technique under heaven. And what's its root, I ask. Shaolin art's root in Zen, the beggar's palm's root in righteous hunger. Where does your family's pride grow from? She opens her mouth. Nothing comes out. 18 years in that library, and no one ever asked her where the foundation was, because there isn't one. It only borrows, I tell her. Borrows the enemy's strength, the enemy's art, the enemy's initiative. A mirror, polished for centuries. It can reflect any sword alive, and if a madman stands in front of it, it reflects the madness right back, faithfully, at full resolution. It decides nothing. It originates nothing. It just returns what arrives, forever. I watch her run the obvious upgrade. Her whole clan practices a mirror. Her whole clan is a mirror, pointed for 300 years at a dead empire, faithfully reflecting a kingdom that no longer exists. And she was training to be a mirror for the mirror. The manual sags in her hands like wet paper, so I offer her the exit while the wound's still open. Your cousin is the answer to a question you never actually asked. Come to Gusu. Look at him with today's eyes. If I'm wrong about him, you'll know. If I'm right, you'll finally know that too. Sun Mei Xin objects to the field trip on the grounds of jealousy, tigers, and jealousy. I sell it to her as the surgical removal of her daughter's last rival loyalty, which is both true and exactly what she wants to hear, and she waves us off from the dock like a Navy wife. One small boat. Me at the oar, my student at the bow, the biggest tiger on the lake dead ahead. Perfect conditions for an ambush, which is, of course, the point of traveling this way. Sir, she asks, watching the water, are we really going alone? The fish are already circling, I tell her. Your letter chummed the water beautifully, and under them, I can smell blood on a fisherman somewhere. Everyone wants to check what fell out of the Song family's pocket. The first wave hits at dusk. Poisoned crossbow bolts hissing out of the reeds from both sides, angles interlocked. Textbook water gang execution. I lean on the oar, just lean, and the boat slides 3 feet sideways in a way boats don't, and the entire volley stitches empty lake. Then 8 divers come out of the water with hooks and spikes in a coordinated bloom, and I have my first genuinely relaxing evening in days. I tap the gunnel so a whirlpool eats one man's footing. I let another's stab die in my sleeve and hand him his own momentum back. I sweep the pole and the water itself thickens against 4 sets of legs. They go back under in worse order than they came up. No deaths, just 8 professionals suddenly reconsidering their industry. Then the real one comes, up out of the deep like a breaching shark, broadsword down at my skull, killing intent with actual pedigree. I catch the blade spine on my bamboo pole, let his force run out of road, and press a thread of chi down through the steel. He folds onto the deck. Done. I lean over him. Tell your master the board is set, and the tea is getting cold. He answers by biting a poison sac, dead in 10 heartbeats. And in his collar, an iron plaque, a swallow, wings spread. Swallow docks inner guard. So Cousin Dearest skipped the rescue and went straight to assassinating his own bride-to-be's traveling party, smiles his own man rather than risk a live capture. Xiaoqing holds the plaque a long moment. Keep it, I tell her. First honest gift your family ever sent you. Oh, and the dead man's last chi burst cracked our hull, so we're also sinking. I hand my silk-raised student a strip of the assassin's bloody shirt. Plug the leak. She stares at me, then at the corpse cloth, then gets on her knees in the bilge water and plugs the leak. And something soft in her dies, and something useful is born. I lever the boat's balance with the pole. Physics does the heavy lifting, and we limp toward the only light on this stretch of black water. Red lanterns. Dozens of them, strung across a floating city of lashed-together hulks. Music, screams, dice, blood, the lake's night market for everything the day market hangs you for. Tingtao Pavilion, the black market, perfect. We were due somewhere flammable. The dock guards want a toll and start pricing my student by the pound. So I show them the swallow plaque and mention, conversationally, that this bird is dead and somebody will pay well to know how. On a lake terrified of the Song name, a stranger holding their inner guard badge and using past tense is either a corpse in progress or a major event. They decide not to gamble and fetch management. Management is Ghost Hand, third of his name, a fur-collared spider who runs this snake pit from a mezzanine. His opening bid is having his scarred lieutenant invite my companion upstairs for a drink, at which point I inquire whether the drink is worth more to him than the deal he's about to miss. Greed versus lust. In a professional, greed wins by knockout. Upstairs we go. The negotiation is short because I only want 2 things, a fast boat and everything he knows about Swallow Docks last month. He balks at the second. Intelligence on the lake's overlord is priced in blood. So I put my second exhibit on the table, a lotus jade hairpin. The token of the mistress of the vast mirror pavilion, the song library itself, which my student wore to a boat ambush because aristocrats don't pack light. The spider's pupils do arithmetic. A dead inner guard plus the library mistress's token in outside hands equals the songhouse cracking down the middle. And cracks in great houses are where men like him make their fortunes. He talks, and what he sells is worth every ounce of theater. Item 1. Song Yi-chen is liquidating. Selling estates his family held for generations, hoarding gold, pulling in every debt. A dragon stripping its own hoard for one last bet. Item 2. Whispered with the lamps turned down. Tonight, at Kanhee Manor, the young master receives guests. Not from any sect, from the West. From the Shisha Empire's first-class hall, the military academy of assassins that collects the worst people alive. Led by someone very senior. My student's face drains. Because for all his sins, her cousin's brand was always restore the Han Dynasty's honor, and he's hosting the Foreign Empire's murder bureau in the family shrine. We take the boat. We do not take it home. Xiaoqing, I say, pointing the bow at Swallow Dock. You wrote to your cousin asking him to come set things right. Let's go watch him do it. Chanhe Manor at night, from inside the garden rockery where she played as a child, and I now crouch committing light treason. Below us, the ancestral water pavilion, and a scene worth the whole voyage. Song Yi-chen, Southern Song, Pride of the South, is standing, at attention. Below his own family's seat of honor. And in that seat lounges a woman in purple, veiled, gorgeous the way a drawn bow is gorgeous, flicking a wine cup and reviewing him like livestock. You handled even Tingtao Pavilion slowly, she's saying. I begin to wonder how much of Southern Song is a man and how much is his grandfather's leftover reputation, and he takes it. The man who duels legends for one wrong word bows his head and takes it, because on the table between them lies a black token with a burning flame, the holy fire token of the first-class hall, command over every Shixia agent buried in the south, the price tag of his empire. The purple woman names her terms like a woman ordering dinner, the martial world of the south, delivered as Shixia's hunting dog, and when he stiffly mentions his honor, she laughs and adjusts his reality. Remember your place. You're my dog now. I say bite. You ask who. Beside me, my student has gone stone still. But the night isn't done with her, because then the purple woman mentions collateral, that cousin of yours, the walking library. Deliver her to the Song Court, or gift her to the right palace. A girl like that buys provinces. And her cousin, her white moonlight, 18 years of devotion, the man she memorized 4,000 manuals for, answers that his cousin's sentiments are a small matter before the great cause, and her value should certainly be spent where it yields most. I hear the exact moment my student's heart finishes the surgery she couldn't do herself. A tiny exhale in the dark, like a book closing. One tear. Just one. For the 18-year-old idiot she's burying, not for him. Then the purple woman sets the deadline that concerns me professionally. 3 days. Bring me the head of this Xu Jiangyu who embarrassed you, and the token is yours. Fail, and the Song family has no further reason to exist. My head. On a schedule. Formally invoiced by an empire. The girl beside me is shaking. Sir, we have to run, she breathes, and lists the arithmetic, an empire's kill order, a clan's desperation, 4 grandmaster retainers. Run, I whisper back, genuinely puzzled. Xiaoqing, look down there. A princess who mistakes fear for authority, holding a leash. A beggar prince who mortgaged his ancestors, wearing one. Both convinced they're the player. That's not a death warrant down there. That's the most promising chessboard I've seen since I arrived, and both of them just volunteered to be pieces. She stares at me in the dark, and I watch terror lose ground, inch by inch, to the thing I've been feeding all month. Don't fear the abyss, I tell her, and hand her back into the boat. Make it check who's looking. The tiger's first move is theater. That same night, torches bloom across the lake, a whole flotilla ringing Mantuo Villa's waters, horns, shouting, the full production. My student panics for her mother. I make her actually look. Torches held high so everyone can see them, boats circling wide instead of landing. That's not a raid, that's a press release. Song Yi-chen can't afford to burn his own family's estate in front of his new employer, so he's staging a manhunt loud enough to flush me out or scare me home into the net. We respond to the encirclement of our home by going out for dinner. Songhe Restaurant, best floor in Suzhou, window table, the good tea. Around us, the whole city is chewing the day's gossip. Southern Song's servants dead in a scandal, a public autopsy scheduled, treason whispers. My press releases run louder than his. And then the government kicks in the restaurant doors, because my earlier arrangement with Constable Zhou has been climbing the org chart. In walks the Provincial Judicial Commissioner's office, Tang Ming, 4th rank, a face like an audit and eyes that have ended careers. His men drag in a familiar fur collar, Ghost Hand himself, arrested at his own favorite restaurant, singing within minutes. Yes, Song Yi-chen hired him to hunt a couple across the lake. Yes, there was a meeting with Shisha men at Kanhei Manor. He only carried messages, mercy, mercy, public, loud, in front of 40 diners. The words song and treason get married in Suzhou's gossip that night, and there's no divorce from that. On his way out, Tang Ming's gaze snags on the one table not trembling. Mine. He walks over with the prefect scurrying behind and asks who I am with the tone of a man adding a name to a file. We fence, briefly and enjoyably. I'm a citizen who reported a crime. How the law weighs it is the law's affair. Surely the innocent have nothing to fear from thunder. He presses. How did I know where the witness would be tonight? I shrug. When a family stages naval theater on the lake, even storytellers can follow the plot. And then I do him the professional courtesy that turns an interrogation into a partnership. I map his real problem out loud. Treason is a case that beheads its own investigators. Half proven. It starts wars and ends judges. But framing and murder, with 2 corpses and a confessed middleman? Airtight, career-making, and it breaks the same family without touching the throne. Prosecute the crime you can carry, Commissioner. Tang Ming looks at me for a long moment, the look of a chess player finding an extra queen on the board and deciding, for now, not to ask whose. Then he bows, slightly, to a nobody in a blue robe. The prefect nearly swallows his own beard, and into this lull, fate delivers dessert. A flustered young scholar blunders up the stairs asking for boat directions to Mantuo Villa, spots my student and detonates on the spot. Fairy sister, he breathes, glowing like a lantern, and I put down my cup to enjoy this properly. It's Chen Feng, crown prince of Dali, runaway idealist, and, by way of his father's hobbies, yet another half-sibling in the world's most dramatic family tree. My collection was missing a legitimate heir. He's tracked her here purely on the rumor of her face, and announces he can die happy now that he's seen her. Old Lin Shaoqing would have blushed. Current Lin Shaoqing looks at this boy, sweet, sincere, worshipping a stranger's silhouette exactly the way she worshipped her cousins, and sees her own ghost in the mirror, and it makes her cold all the way through. You've mistaken me for someone else, she says, arctic. I take pity on the boy, partly. I ask him what a fairy is. Someone above the mortal world, he says promptly, carefree and untouched. So I invite him to actually look at her, the shadows under the eyes, the sword nick on the throat, the wariness of a person who's been priced by relatives twice this month. That's not a fairy, Your Highness, that's a survivor. You fell in love with a jade statue and you're calling it by a living woman's name. He wilts magnificently, and because his family owes this table more than he can imagine, I offer him what I offer everyone, the tour. Come with us, Prince. Come see the world your fairy actually lives in. Then decide what your admiration is worth. He comes. Of course he comes. Nobody ever takes the safe exit from my offers. It's my favorite thing about people. On the boat, I explain the pricing structure to him. Everyone around his father is paying compound interest on the man's romances, the abandoned women, their weaponized daughters, and now him, the legitimate son, who inherits the whole receivables book just by carrying the name. He protests that feelings aren't debts. Son, feelings are the only debts nobody's ever once been allowed to skip. The dock at Mantuo Villa is waiting for us, lit by 2 lanterns, and I admire my own handiwork arranged on it like a receiving line from a nightmare. Sun Mei Xin with wine and a hostess smile you could skate on. Luo Ningxiang, flute in hand, eyes like scales weighing everyone. Kui Huan, trembling. Hua Yan Hong, still as a post, my carving knife in her sash. Your Highness, I tell the prince as we tie up, welcome to the estate. Your first creditors are already here. The dock reunion goes wrong in a fresh and instructive direction because the knight has one more birth certificate to disclose. Sun Mei Xin takes one look at Chen Feng's face, his father's face, 30 years younger, and starts sharpening her hospitality. A maid announces yet another intruder. A girl caught at the gates riding, and I quote, something between a squirrel and a weasel, demanding her brother Feng. In bounces Wu Xiaofang, 16, dimples, a lightning martin on her shoulder, sunshine in a green shirt, straight into the middle of our gothic ensemble like a kitten into a chess final. Sun Mei Xin, whose evening has contained too many of her ex's relatives, orders the wild girl and her rat chopped up for fertilizer. The classics never truly leave us, and the trembling, useless, syrup-soft Cui Huan detonates. She's across the dock before the guards move, arms out, hen's wings wide over the girl, screeching at the most feared woman on the lake. Touch her and I'll tear you apart. Everyone freezes. Sun Mei Xin, amused, asks what this girl could possibly be to her. She's my daughter, Cui Huan screams. Mine and Jusa. And there it hangs, unfinished, in front of Chen Feng, who is, at this moment, realizing that the adorable creature who's been calling him Brother Feng and hinting at feelings all the way from the border is his sister. His face achieves a color painters haven't named. The prince's family tree isn't a tree. It's a minefield with foliage. I hand the situation to my student because this is literally the exam. Zhao Qing steps forward, cool as well water, and rules like a magistrate. To Cui Huan Huan, your courage is admitted as evidence, but a mother's love that only wakes at knife point needs a spine to live in, so your standing lessons just doubled. To the girl, she's blameless. She stays, as a maid of the estate, under her mother's own hands, which is either mercy or the longest grounding in history. And my final flourish on top, I strip the disaster of its two poisoned surnames entirely. Not a Zhong, not a Chen. Just Zhao Fang, a person, employed, alive, free of the mortgage both fathers welded to her name. The girl, who understands maybe half of it, mostly registers that nobody's chopping anyone, and beams. And Chen Feng gets his own sentence. You have feeling, prince, and righteousness, and no strength to lift either, I tell him, and fold his soft palms around a laborer's water yoke. Your father's debts live here. Stay, carry water, find the lady of the knife her carving wood, learn what protection weighs per bucket. His retainers would faint. He looks at Lin Xiaoqing, who doesn't look back, swallows, and picks up the yoke. The Crown Prince of Dali starts hauling lake water for my garden, and honestly, it's the most useful thing a Chen man has done for this household in 20 years. One correction, he starts hauling water after he finishes almost dying, because in the middle of all this, Hua Yanhong hears his surname one time too many. My mother said every man named Chen deserves to die, she states, factually, and her fingers are already a blade at his throat before his brain files the thread. No sword needed, 20 years of reflexes travel light. The prince freezes like a rabbit doing taxes, and I don't move either because I don't have to. I just say, your knife is for blooming, remember? 5 words. Her hand stops a hair off his artery, shakes, and comes back down. She looks at that hand like it belongs to a stranger she's starting to argue with. Progress comes in ugly increments. That leaves one loose thread on the dock, and she pulls it herself. Hua Yanhong steps out of the shadows, looks at Cui Chuan Chuan clutching her daughter, and asks the question with no answer in any of my 3,000 manuals. She found something to protect, and it saved her. I have no one and nothing. Where's my road? The whole dock holds its breath, and I watch my student walk to the junk drawer of her own week, take out everything I've taught her, and forge it into one sentence. A road isn't found and isn't given, Xiaoqing says. It's cut. You hold the only knife in this house that makes things instead of ending them. So cut. One shaving at a time, no destination required. And when the blade finally feels like a hand instead of a wound, walk in whatever direction it's pointing. Hua Yanhong looks down at the gardener's knife for a long moment. Then she tucks it away with a care I've only seen her give weapons, and follows everyone in to dinner. 4 broken women, a demoted prince, a rehomed Martin, and my student quietly running the whole asylum. The estate's getting crowded, the ledger's getting heavy, and in 3 days, an empire expects my head on a plate. The next contestant doesn't wait 3 days. He doesn't even knock. Midday, clear sky, and suddenly every bird on the estate goes up at once. Then a voice arrives, not from a direction, from everywhere, out of the water and the walls and the inside of your own ears. Ventriloquism refined into a siege weapon, metallic and wrong, like a corpse doing impressions. It goes straight for the softest target on the grounds. Little Chen, it croons at the prince, scion of the royal house, hauling water for peasants? Your father humiliated, your beloved a servant girl, and you, heir of Dali, scrubbing docks. Come to family, child. One nod and I hand you freedom, power, and everyone who laughed kneeling at your feet. Chen Feng drops his buckets and turns gray. Luo Ningxiang names the horror first. That's not voice throwing, that's a lost, transcendent art. And I finally get to meet, at acoustic range, the coldest line item on my ledger, Chen Lie, first of the 4 great evils. The original Crown Prince of Dali, betrayed, mutilated, legs gone, face gone, throat gone, everything gone except a genius for martial arts and a 20-year invoice against the world. The rightful king, technically, of the boy currently spilling my lake water on his shoes. And when the boy doesn't bite, the voice turns to me and drops the courtship. 3 days, it says, frost crawling across the pond as it speaks. Deliver Chen Feng to me, or this estate becomes a second Wanjie Valley. Not one blade of grass. Cui Huan Huan faints. That's what a reputation is. 2 words and a woman hits the deck. Everyone looks at me, and I look at Chen Feng, because this exact moment is why I keep the boy. Your Highness, I say, your family came for you. Option 1, go with the nice voice, take the power, come back and burn us down. Option 2, stay, keep hauling water, keep atoning for a father who wouldn't cross the street for you. Choose out loud, please. The acoustics are excellent today. The prince shakes like a wet dog. The voice sweetens the pot from the air itself, and this soft, useless, poetry-brained boy plants his feet in the spilled water and says, squeaks, but says, I won't leave. Good lad, there's a spine in there after all. His father will be so confused. Then I handle the pest control. I raise one hand toward the lake and draw a line, and the whole lake obeys. Every ripple on Taihu flattens at once, miles of water going mirror still, holding its breath. Onto that stillness I place one thought, aimed like a lance down the thread of his own listening art, straight into the skull of a killer squatting somewhere in the reeds a mile out. I'll take the Chen bloodline, your hatred, your revenge, your 20 years, they end at my property line. Far away, faintly, I hear a man cough blood onto a boat deck. 3. I'm hospitalizing legends by correspondence now, and then, because a threat repelled is a marketing opportunity wasted, I dictate my countermove to Xiao Qing, and I watch her hand tremble as she realizes what she's writing. An invitation to Chen Lie, first of the 4 great evils. In 3 days, Mantuo Villa will settle the entire Chen family karma at a formal ceremony. Do come and observe. Signed, courteously, the flower farmer. Then a second letter to Tianlong Temple, the monastery that guards Dali's royal line, informing the abbot his runaway prince is atoning here, and the family's whole account comes due in 3 days. And a third addressed, my student's brush actually stops on the paper, to the Emperor of Dali. In 3 days we judge your house's sins. Attend if the throne's honor interests you. Zhao Qing looks up at me over the wet ink. Sir, you're inviting the world's worst villain, the strongest monastery under heaven, and an emperor, to the same party. I'm inviting the whole board to one square, I agree. Sign it. And here's the part I'll remember. She doesn't sign my name. She writes in that immaculate scholar's hand, Mantuo Villa, Lin Xiaoqing. The canary just put her own name on a declaration of war against 2 kingdoms. I'd wipe away a proud tear, but the ink would smear. The invitation to the devil needs a courier, and I pick the one that makes both women in my life gasp. Hua Yan Hong, alone. To Erin Ferry, the floating slum at the far shore where the lake's fugitives, smugglers, and knife trash pool, and where Chen Lie's spies nest thickest. Zhao Qing protests it's a death sentence. Sun Mei Xin accuses me of spending women like copper coins, which from her is practically a compliment. But I look at the hollow girl with the carving knife and lay it out straight. Your hatred is dead, and your past is buried, and right now you're a corpse that walks politely. Corpses can't hold knives. Go where it's ugly. Find out, in the wind, in the blood, on the cliff edge, whether that blade of yours can actually bloom, or whether it was only ever a grave with a handle. If I die there, she asks, flat. Then that was your size, I say, but I don't think it is. She takes the letter. She even bows, first bow of her life that anyone earned rather than beat out of her. Her trip is a whole saga, and she tells it to no one, but I get the pieces later, some from my spies, some from the karma thread on my wrist, which spent that night twitching like a fishing line with something honest on it. So you get them from me. A water assassin hits her boat halfway across. She breaks his shoulder with an oar, and then, this is the part I'd have paid to watch, doesn't finish him. My knife isn't for nameless nobodies, she tells the man, and rows on while he floats there, reevaluating his week. I felt the thread go warm at that. At the ferry itself, 4 dock thugs try their standard welcome, and she folds all 4 with knife butt and boat pole. 0 corpses, which in that zip code reads as either weakness or divinity. Divinity, apparently, because the invitation reaches the top of the food chain fast, and the top sends for her. In a lamplit houseboat hung with brill, brace yourself, sin, children's bibs, and tiny tiger head shoes, she meets the ferry's second master. A gentle-faced woman mending baby clothes, whose eyes have nothing behind them but weather. Liu Xinyang, second of the 4 great evils, the one the songs warn mothers about, the stealer of infants, the sweetest voice on the list of monsters. The test she sets is the oldest one in the guild, and even I, hearing it secondhand, felt my jaw set. She unwraps a bundle onto the table, and it's a baby, someone's stolen, sleeping, days-old son, and she slides it toward Hua Yan Hong with a smile like a crack in porcelain. The crown prince hears your knife has learned to bloom, she says. Water the flower. Freshest blood there is. Do it, and you're one of us, and all your dead mother's hatred gets a new home. And there it is, the fork I sent her to find. The old Hua Yan Hong kills on instruction. That's all she was ever built for. The corpse that walks doesn't care either way. Whoever she is now has to answer with a blade in a room with no good exits against the second-ranked murderer alive. The baby wakes and cries. Liu Xinyang leans in, hungry, waiting for steel. Hua Yan Hong draws the knife and attacks the chair, whittles the leg in fast, furious strokes, wood curling off like feathers, and in a dozen breaths she's holding a little wooden rattle drum, rough, lopsided, with a smiley face gouged into the skin of it. She shakes it by the baby's ear. Tock, tock. The crying stops. Tiny hands reach for the toy. My flower already bloomed, she tells the monster, and pushes the drum and the child across the table. I'll be honest with you, when the report reached me, I sat with my tea going cold for a while. I've engineered a lot of moments this month. That one, I only planted. She grew it alone, in the dark, in a murderer's houseboat, with a baby's life on the table. Some days the teaching business pays in something better than power. What follows, I wouldn't script if you paid me. Liu Xinyang, baby killer, 20-year horror of the South, looks at a whittled toy soothing a stolen child and shatters. Because once upon a time she had a son of her own, taken from her, and every crime since has been that wound looking for company. She cries, she rages, she wraps the baby back up with hands that suddenly remember being a mother's, orders it returned to its family alive, first time in 2 decades, and tells her underlings the girl is hers now, untouchable. Then she personally walks my courier to the Black Tower at the Fairy's Heart, where a legless shadow sits over a 30-year chess problem, and hands her up to the Crown Prince of Nothing. Chen Li receives the invitation, and the girl, with the good humor of a glacier. He reads. He looks at this failed disciple of a failed avenger, at the rattle drum in her sash where a sword should be, and issues his RSVP through that horrible everywhere voice. Tell the flower farmer I accept, not to observe the ceremony, to collect a debt. And tell him I'm patient. I'll be watching for the day one of his flowers wilts. She comes home at dawn, alive, unescorted, and I meet her at the dock myself, which I do for exactly nobody. She hands me the devil's acceptance letter and, more importantly, to my eye, she's walking like a person instead of a beautifully maintained weapon. Liu Xinyang's parting gift is tucked in her sash next to the knife, the rattle drum, a monster's blessing or a mother's. Around here, I find the two run in the same families. The monastery answers next, and the monastery doesn't send a letter. It sends 8 monks who set up camp outside our gates like the world's politest siege. Their leader is Wu Neng, second only to the abbot of Tianlong Temple, eyebrows to his chest, calm like a mountain range. He requests, with impeccable manners, the return of the Crown Prince of Dali. I send Xiaoqing to the gate, alone, because you don't learn sword work by watching me fence. I do post myself within earshot, half a mile back, the way you spot a first solo swim, from a chair, with tea. And my student, 18, 3 weeks into her education, dismantles the strongest monastery in the Southwest in about 40 sentences, while I sip and grade. Which prince are you here for, masters? The runaway boy, Chen Feng? That's a family matter, and family debts are being settled here in 3 days. Take a number. Or the other Crown Prince of Dali, the older claim, the disinherited one, who, by the way, is also attending? Because if the temple has come to rule on succession, do clarify which throne you're guarding and whether your Buddha wears the Chen family crest on his robes. 8 enlightened masters stand at our gate, discovering that every available answer incriminates them. Monk chess, she's a natural. I give the performance full marks and 1 demerit for mercy. She let them keep their dignity, which I suppose is what the mercy line in my curriculum was for. Wu Neng, to his credit, changes weapons. His gaze goes past her, into the estate, and he asks, voice suddenly careful, whether her master happens to command the true chi of the northern darkness, whether he is perhaps of the carefree sect. Names I'll want later, but not on his schedule. So I answer from where I'm standing, half a mile away, without raising my voice. I fold the words into the wind, the water, the bird song, so the sentence assembles inside 8 skulls at once, in a monastery cadence, with bells in it. The Buddha said it cannot be spoken. 8 monks sway like wheat. Wu Neng bows to an empty gate and withdraws his men to the far shore to think about their lives. They don't leave, though. That night they counterattack, in their fashion. 8 voices rise across the water in the Diamond Sutra, and it's not a prayer, it's a formation. The Buddha sound that suppresses demons, a lattice of holy calm that settles over the whole estate like snow. Servants stop mid-argument and smile vacantly. Sun Mei Xin's rage drains out of her face and leaves something empty. Even my monsters in the cave go soft at the edges. It's beautiful, and it's a lobotomy with a melody. They mean to sand every passion off this estate until the demon in residence has nothing left to grip. Xiaoqing fights it and fails. Her manual's clever fingers find nothing to hold, because you can't stir a sea of nothing. Sir, she manages, their art is emptiness itself. What breaks emptiness? The one thing it can't digest, I say. And I answer 8 of the holiest men alive with a single word. Not shouted, placed. Set gently into the middle of their sea of no self, like 1 drop of ink into bleach. I exist. I want. I love. I owe. I burn. I am. The whole mortal world folded into the 1 syllable, their entire doctrine is built to dissolve, backed by every scrap of the formless art and pointed like an awl. Across the water, the sutra chokes. 8 voices crack apart mid-verse, and venerable Wu Neng, 60 years of polished no-self, coughs blood into the lake. 4 now. Monks. I'm blood-coughing monks. The formation collapses so completely the frogs start up again, and then the night gets genuinely strange. Instead of retreating or attacking, the old monk stands, straightens his bloodied robe, and bows across the water, deep, formal, shaking. This old monk has practiced 60 years, he calls, voice raw, and 1 word has shown him the leak in his vessel. He no longer asks for the prince, he asks, begs, to hear the Tao. Every once in a while, this world reminds me why I like monks. Show a bandit he's wrong, and he stabs you. Show a real monk he's wrong, and he says thank you and asks for seconds. We negotiate his tuition through Zhao Qing, and I set it high on purpose. Attend the ceremony in 3 days as listeners, bring your own cushions, speak when spoken to, and pay for your seats with the temple's founding treasure. The original manual of the 6 Meridian Divine Sword. The gate delegation nearly riots. The 6 Meridian Divine Sword is Dali's crown jewel. The finger sword art emperors take vows over. It doesn't leave the temple. It barely leaves its box. Asking for it as an admission ticket is like asking a man for his spine as a cover charge. Zhao Qing relays their outrage back to me with a completely straight face. I relay back one question. If the masters can't put down a book, what exactly were they planning to put down for enlightenment? Wu Neng hears it, goes silent for a long time, and gives the order I genuinely didn't expect to hear out loud. Return to the temple, fetch the manual. A proper ceremony needs music, so while the monks are gone, I send my student back into the cave with the strangest shopping list of her life. Find me a funeral song. Something suitable for burying 20 years of other people's obsessions. She expects a music shelf. What she finds, in the dust of the deepest corner, is the thing I suspected was down there and wanted found by her hands, not mine. A booklet made of jade-thin white leaves with no title and a 7-stringed chin drawn on the cover, and an opening line that freezes her blood. Heaven's way is heartless, the 7 passions are its strings. This is not music, it is a knife that enters through the heart. The Manual of the 7 Passions, a complete science of playing human emotion like an instrument, grief, fear, joy, rage, each with its keys and fingerings, each weaponizable through sound. Not a martial art, an emotional surgery kit with a composer's ego. And as she holds it, the cave answers her. A resonance, faint as a moth's wing, between the jade pages and the white marble statue in the central chamber. The nameless fairy figure she's prayed to, envied, and been compared against her whole childhood. I've walked past that statue a dozen times myself and felt it humming under the stone like a sealed letter. Tonight in the lamplight, its carved eyes hold a shine that stone doesn't make. She follows the hum, touches the statue's wrist where a chin player's pulse would sit, and a hidden drawer breathes open in the lotus pedestal. Inside, one flower, dried the deep purple of old blood, kept whole for decades, and 16 carved characters in the same hand as the manual. The score is finished, but where is the one who hears it? A lifetime's regret, wide as the vast sea. Vast sea. Changhai. Sunhai Meng. The name unlocks the whole crypt. This statue was never a goddess, it's a portrait. The founder's great love, the woman 3 peerless masters of the carefree sect destroyed themselves and each other over, whose face got carved into a cult object that outlived every actual feeling involved. She wrote the deadliest music alive and died unheard. This whole legendary library, my student realizes, standing in the middle of it, the treasure vault every warrior alive would kill to enter, is a tomb. 3 generations of genius, filed and shelved, around a statue of the woman none of them ever actually listened to. I already knew, for the record. I've known since my first hour in that cave, when I opened the Plum Blossom Manual and tasted snow and one woman's unanswered question in every stroke. The system doesn't read technique, it reads the wanting underneath, and everything on those shelves wants the same 3 people to have chosen differently. I sent my student in there for a funeral song because the cave is one. She just needed to hear it herself. And hear it she does. On my instruction, she goes back the night before the ceremony, sits before the statue with the jade manual in her lap, empties her heart the way I taught her, and lays her palm on the carved wrist, where a chin player's pulse would live. What pours through is a century, uncut. She gets the founder at his chisel, carving this very face for decades, not out of love, it turns out, but out of an artist's obsession with a perfect thing, which looks identical to love right up until you need it not to be. She gets the elder sister on her frozen peak, hammering her matchless art into the snow, every strike still asking, why won't you look at me? She gets the younger sister in her western palace, washing down her stolen victory with 30 years of wine that never once worked. 3 of the greatest talents who ever lived, each holding a masterpiece, each starving next to a full table. And underneath them all, the quiet woman who saw the whole disease wrote the only cure, a music that touches hearts directly, and died with the score finished and the hall empty. My student comes out of the cave at dawn gray-faced and older, holding the manual like a relic. She doesn't cry. She bows to the statue 3 times before she leaves, not for luck. From one walking library to another, and when she finds me on the terrace, she asks the one question the whole night was for. Sir, the ceremony tomorrow. We're not just settling the Chen family, are we? No, I tell her. Tomorrow we bury everyone's dead kingdoms, the Duan's romances, the Murong's empire, and, when the road eventually turns north, a sex worth of century-old heartbreak that's been waiting for someone with working ears. Her requiem gets its haul, Xiao Qing, eventually. I pay my library fines. Then comes her tuition payment, because the manual has an entry fee too, and the fee is practice. I sit her down across from the nearest available emotional volcano, her own mother, and tell her, before you play fear, you have to see it. Look at Madame. Tell me what she's afraid of. Sunmei Shin submits to being read with terrible grace, because I frame it as her contribution to our arsenal, and vanity outvotes dread by a nose. My student breathes, opens the manual's listening method, and looks at her mother. Really looks, for the first time in 18 years, with the lights on. She doesn't say the safe answer, which is, losing you, sir. She says the true one. You're not afraid of losing him, mother. You're afraid that without him, you go back to being what you were before he came. And you hate her more than you've ever hated any of us. The room goes so quiet, I can hear the candle. Sunmei Shin's face does something I've never seen it do. It stops performing. For 3 full seconds, the most feared woman on the lake is just a tired person who's been found. Then the mask reassembles. She says something cutting about scholars and sweeps out. But she doesn't order anyone composted on the way, and by local standards, that's a standing ovation. You just played your first note, I tell my shaken student, on the hardest instrument in the house. The ceremony orchestra is coming along nicely. 2 nights before the ceremony, my garden acquires a pest. I feel him the moment he crosses the wall, a wrongness among the poison flowers, a heartbeat trying too hard to be quiet. And I feel who it is before I see him, because that particular blend of pride, panic, and borrowed time only grows in one greenhouse. Song Yi Chen, in person, in black. Crouched in my lady's toxin bed with a sword, waiting for a clean line on my back. Southern Song, legend of the age, reduced to garden variety assassination, with a countdown running because his purple employer wants my head in 2 days or his clan's charter gets shredded. I let Xiaoqing take the intercept because this meeting is the entire point of her tuition. She walks up behind the greatest pride of her girlhood and says, in a voice with all the warmth of an autopsy, "Cousin, skulking in the flower beds at midnight, should I fetch you a trowel?" The ambush is dead on arrival, so we do this like civilized people. Tea. 3 cups in the night pavilion, the assassin, the target, and the girl who used to keep his library. He tries everything in the set. Commands her home, she pours tea. Appeals to family, she reminds him family, in his own recent phrasing at Kanhei Manor, is an asset class. Then he lunges across the last bridge available and demands to know what sorcery I used on his cousin, on his aunt, on his retainers. No sorcery, I tell him, and take his life apart between sips. Your art returns whatever arrives, and so do you. The empire pushes, you bow. The court pushes, you scheme. Your ancestors push from inside the family shrine, and you spend a living cousin like minted silver. There's no Song Yu Chen in Song Yu Chen, just a mirror with a famous name, reflecting a dead kingdom at anyone who stands still long enough. That's why you'll lose everything. Not for lack of talent, because there was never anyone home. He shatters exactly the way his uncle did, sword first. The full star-shifting repertoire, the true art, gorgeous and lethal, and completely beside the point. I turn his finest sequence back into his own centerline with 2 fingers, his family's principle, executed cleaner than his family ever managed, and he ends the exchange on his knees among the toxic camellias, coughing blood onto the mulch. 5. The mulch, at least, is grateful. Go home, I tell him, not unkindly, because you don't waste anger on a drowning man holding an anvil. Your masterpiece is in 2 days. Rest up. He staggers into the dark. My student watches him go with dry eyes, and I know the surgery took, because what's left on her face isn't grief, it's diagnosis. And before the garden even airs out, the lake delivers the next course. Lantern light off the water, silk sails, an arrival with a fanfare of drums. A pleasure barge the size of a customs house, flying the twin banners of the Shisha Empire and the first-class hall. The Purple Princess, 2 days early, at my dock, with 4 white-haired grandmasters arranged around her like compass points. Apparently, she prefers to inspect merchandise before the auction. Both hands on the railing, veil bright in the lamplight, she looks down at me, the head she ordered, still attached, standing between a Wuxia legend's daughter and a poison garden, and laughs like silver bells with something wrong inside them. "So you're the flower farmer," she calls. "I've paid for your head, you know." "Store credit," I call back. "Come down and have tea instead. Everyone else has." She doesn't come down. She summons us up, which is how empires say please. The barge deck is a throne room with rigging, carpets, horn lanterns, and the 4 white elders breathing in unison until the air feels like wet cement. One of them decides to calibrate me on the way in. A sleeve flick sends a lance of frozen chi at my chest, the famous cold sleeve acupoint art, silent and rude. I catch it between 2 fingers, hold it there, wriggling, like a snake picked up behind the head, then pinch. The lance pops into vapor, and its owner staggers back 3 steps and goes the approved shade of gray. Not quite blood, call it 4.5. Small technique, I remark, and the deck's temperature changes in the other direction. The princess sits up. The bored hostess evaporates, and underneath is what was always there, a very sharp woman doing very fast math. "Who are you?" she asks, third person tonight to open with that, so I give her the truth, a flower farmer. And when the deck bristles at the insolence, I explain the economics via zoology. An eagle doesn't negotiate with an ant over a grain of rice, Highness, not from pride. The grain just doesn't register. You've been offering kingdoms and tokens to ants all month and calling it strategy. I'm not in that economy. I came up here for one thing only, and it's not on your table. She should have me killed for that sentence. Instead, and this is how you know the difference between a throne and a person, she leans forward and asks what is on my table. Answers, I say, specifically hers, and the price of tonight's tea is this. My student pours, and Her Highness answers every question the girl asks about Song Yuchen. All of them, honestly. The princess looks at Xiaoqing, the bargaining chip that walked off the table and started setting terms, and something like professional respect flickers behind the veil. She agrees. Curiosity is the one bribe that works on the genuinely rich. What follows is the quietest execution of the season. My student brews tea with ceremony-grade calm and asks her surgical little questions, and the princess, amused, then engaged, then almost gentle, lays out the whole wretched procurement file. How Song Yuchen came begging through Xixia trade channels, what he offered first and what he offered when that wasn't enough, the family manuals, the mortgaged estates, and the line item my student was born to hear, his written proposal to deploy his cousin's beauty against the crown prince of Dali, seduce, compromise, destabilize the succession. Her, itemized, in his own brushwork, filed between horses and silver. Xiaoqing's pouring hand stops for one heartbeat, tea steam rising perfectly straight. Then she finishes the pour without spilling a drop, thanks Her Highness for the clarification, and I watch the last brick of the shrine come down inside her, silently, professionally. No tears this time. Inventory complete. The 18-year-old who loved her cousin is now formally deceased, survived by someone considerably more dangerous. The princess watches all of it too, fascinated, like a woman seeing a new weapon demonstrated. Then she makes her own play, because empires always do. She offers me the dog's job with better kibble. Kill Song Yuchen, kneel, and everything he begged for is mine doubled. The token, the backing, the south on a leash. I decline in a way she'll remember. The leash is the problem, Highness, not the kibble. But do come to the ceremony. You've read everyone at this table their price tonight. It's only fair someone eventually reads you yours. Behind the veil, something goes still. And then the princess of Xixia laughs, a real one this time, startled out of her, and announces she wouldn't miss it for the throne itself. Guest list complete. Devil, monastery, empire, and every wronged woman on the lake. Now all I need is a hero. The hero, as it happens, is at that moment losing everything, one province over. We hear it in Songhe restaurant, where the whole city's buzzing. Xiaozan is in the south. The Xiaozan, chief of the beggar sect, northern Xiaozan to her cousin's southern Song, the other half of the most famous rivalry alive. I get exactly one look at the original before the ambush. A mountain in plain cloth 2 tables over, drinking alone, who answers a gang of thugs hassling a beggar boy by flicking an empty wine bowl through a solid oak table without rising from his seat. The bowl survives, the table converts to kindling. The thugs achieve enlightenment and leave. That's the difference, I tell Xiaoqing, between technique and intent. Your cousin's art borrows, that man's art vows. And then a beggar sprints in with word that turns the mountain gray, an emergency assembly of his own sect, called without him, in the apricot grove outside the city. I settle our bill and inform my student we're changing venues. An hour later, I'm standing with her at the back of a torch-lit crowd, watching the martial world perform its favorite play, The Burning of a Hero by Committee. I take one look at the staging and admire the production values despite myself. A tearful widow, deputy chief's wife, all silk grief and perfect timing, testifying her husband died by the sect's own signature palm, and who else under heaven turns your own art against you? An elder producing a sealed letter from the dead old chief. And the letter's payload read aloud to 300 torches. Zhao Zhan is not Han. Zhao Zhan is Catan, born of the empire's blood enemies, planted in the cradle of the sect, a wolf suckled on the watchdog's milk. The crowd does what crowds do. The word Catan lands, and 30 years of the man, every border held, every brother carried home, evaporates against one noun. His own lieutenants weep and draw steel at the same time. And the big man stands in the torchlight absorbing it, too proud to beg, too honest to lie, watching his life get repossessed by a rumor with a stamp on it. I wasn't going to intervene. A rescue would only make him my accessory, and this man is nobody's accessory. But sloppy work offends me, so I do allow myself 2 comments from the crowd, at conversational volume, in a grove silent enough to hear a moth cough. Comment 1. Madam, I say to the swooning widow, for a woman too grief-crushed to stand, your hands are very busy. 300 heads turn. Her hands, knuckles white, veins up, wrung together like she's throttling a chicken, are the hands of a fighter mid-performance, not a mourner. She snatches them into her sleeves fast enough to confirm everything. Comment 2, while the grove is still buzzing. And about the murder weapon, elders, you say the deputy chief died by his own signature palm, and only your chief turns a man's art against him. Think one step further. An assassin's whole job is leaving no signature. So why would a killer go out of his way to use the victim's own technique, the single loudest autograph possible? Unless the autograph was the point. Unless someone wanted precisely this grove, this letter, this verdict. And while you're thinking, your chief isn't the only master alive famous for returning a man's art to him. There's a whole family south of here whose banner says exactly that. You can hear the crowd's certainty crack like lake ice in spring. It doesn't save him. The letter's real enough. The fury's too hot. And the elders settle on stripping his post and sparing his head, pending the truth of his blood. But when Zhao Zhan sets his chief's badge down, gently, which is the worst part, and walks out through a corridor of people afraid to meet his eyes, he detours 3 steps, to me. A stranger who spent 2 sentences on him when his brothers of 30 years spent none. He doesn't thank me. Men like this don't. He just looks at me the way you mark a door you intend to come back through and walks into the dark. See you soon, hero. Every proper funeral needs a pallbearer with clean hands. Our own walk home from the Grove turns into the evening's second seminar, because Suzhou's alleys are having a busy week. The sex schemers decided the mysterious stranger who whispered to their deposed chief needed removing, and song retainers wanted a rematch, and rather than coordinate calendars, they simply all showed up. A knife wall of beggars in a hostile formation, the sect's famous dog-beating array, plus my 2 bandaged acquaintances, He Kanghai and Gao Tieksheng, glowering from the flanks, all wrapped around one narrow lane like a debt collector's convention. The array's leader is worth introducing, Ma Guanglie, chief of the sect's strategists, the silk voice behind tonight's coup, a man whose ambition you can smell over the torch smoke. He announces they've come for the Khitan spy's accomplice. I ask my student, conversationally, what the dog-beating array's one weakness is. She answers like reciting scripture. It's woven for one target. All its gates close on a single point of pressure, and then goes pale, because I step into the array while she's still talking. Here's the thing about formations. They're group faith, 30 men trusting a diagram. So I walk the diagram's own seams, half step here, shoulder turn there, never blocking, never striking, just perpetually standing where the plan says a man cannot be. Sticks tangle sticks, brothers club brothers. The formation devours itself with growing enthusiasm, while I stroll through it like a man inspecting a garden, and I never touch a single beggar. 30 seconds in, the array is a pile of bruised colleagues, and I'm standing in front of Ma Guangli, holding out my open hand. Your command flag, chief strategist. You've misplaced your dogs. He looks at his flattened formation, at my empty palm, at the 2 song retainers conspicuously not helping, and hands me the flag. I snap the pole one-handed, drop the halves at his feet, and lean in close enough for privacy. I know what you built tonight in that grove, I tell him, just for his ears. And when it collapses on you, and it will, in front of everyone, remember that a flower farmer told you the date. 3 days. Bring your whole conspiracy. Seats are free. He leaves with his men and his future both limping. He Kanghai and Gao Tieksheng, who came for a rematch and instead watched me disassemble 30 men without inconveniencing my sleeves, perform a synchronized about-face worthy of an honor guard. And Xiaoqing, stepping over groaning beggars to rejoin me, asks the only question that matters. Sir, was that the array's weakness or theirs? Same thing, I tell her. It's always the same thing. Write that down. The night before the ceremony, nobody in my house sleeps, and every insomnia is doing useful work. Xiaoqing sits with the jade manual until dawn, and somewhere in those hours, she stops asking it how to play and starts telling it why. I hear the vow through 2 walls, not because she says it loudly, but because the manual answers. A warmth in the jade, a hum in the dark, the score recognizing a performer with something true to perform. If the heart is false, the sword rebounds, the old warning goes. Hers doesn't rebound anymore. There's nothing false left in there to catch on. Zhao Zhan finds our villa before midnight. Of course he does. The man could track a rumor across an ocean, and plants himself in my courtyard with the last question of his old life. Was I telling the truth in the Grove? I give him better than truth. I give him the appointment. Tomorrow, 1 banquet, every author of his ruin in 1 pavilion, and all he has to do is attend and be exactly what he is. A mirror made of 1 solid piece, I tell him, walked into a hall of forgeries. You won't need to accuse anyone. Standing next to you will be indictment enough. He stares at me a long time. Then he asks for wine, which among men like him is a signature. We kill 3 jars. Somewhere in the second one, he stops being a guest and starts being an ally. And somewhere in the third, he tells me about the border, and I tell him almost nothing about me, and he notices and toasts my discretion anyway. I could build empires with 10 of this man. There's only 1 of him, which is likely why nobody has. And at first light, the monks deliver the impossible, a sandalwood box, ancient, warm from generations of reverent hands. The 6-meridian divine sword. The actual manual, surrendered by the actual temple as tuition from monks to a flower farmer. I have Xiaoqing open it. 6 scrolls of silk, thin as breath, meridian maps in cinnabar, the whole finger sword of God right there for the reading, the technique my system would inhale in a heartbeat and triple by lunch. I close the box and send it back. The courier monk nearly faints. Xiaoqing's eyebrows achieve personal best altitude, but it's the easiest call I've made all month, and I make sure my student hears the reasoning, because it's her graduation lecture. The moment I take their treasure, I'm a man who can be paid. Priced, filed on a shelf next to Song Yi Chen, who also took what empires offered. Tell the venerable ones their tuition is refused, but their seats are confirmed, and that the lesson already started. They'll understand by dessert. Besides, I add, watching her repack 6 scrolls of ultimate power with steady hands and give them away, my sword's already forged. Why would I borrow theirs? She doesn't smile at the compliment. She just stands a little straighter, the way a blade does in a good sheath. We dress for the banquet. The invitation from Can Manor arrives mid-morning, gold embossed, requesting our presence ahead of the evening's festivities. Young Master Song wishes to discuss arrangements. Translation: one last spider's attempt to reseat himself at the head of a table that's already been carried out of his house. We go because you should always let a man show you his final card. It saves guessing later. The reception is a two-hander. Song Yu Chen, waxy but composed, propped on pride and arithmetic, and poor Chen Feng, retrieved from my woodpile by family pressure and reinstalled as an honored guest, visibly missing the buckets. My former laborer shoots me the look of a hostage asked to smile for the painting. The young master's play is exactly the vintage you'd expect. To my face, gracious probing about my origins, each question a fishhook baited with flattery. To Xiao Qing, the full cousin symphony, childhood debts, family duty, her poor mother's reputation, all arranged for strings. He's good, I'll admit. 20 years of practice at being owed things. She lets him finish the whole movement, and I stay out of it because this duel is hers by right of tuition paid. Then she sets down her teacup and addresses him with the courtesy you'd offer a stranger's servant. Has the young master considered which he'll present at tonight's banquet? The ancestral swallow banner or the shisha flame token? Because she hears from reliable sources the two clash terribly, and it would be a shame to embarrass the Empress Dowager's niece with mismatched accessories. I watch the sentence go through him like a gaff through a fish. She knows. She was there. Every card in his hand has been face up for days, and the cousin he priced for export just quoted his own treason back to him with a hostess's smile. Whatever he was planning for us dies right there in the teacups, and before he can improvise a plan C, heaven mails him plan Z. A servant crashes into the pavilion, so pale I check him for a pulse from across the room. Outside the manor, a ship, flying the flame banner of the first-class hall of Great Shisha, and an envoy asking, by name, for Mr. Shu and Miss Lin, not for the young master of the house. For us. I could not have scripted this better, and I say that as a man who scripts things professionally. In glides the envoy, eunuch Ho Rong, the Empress Dowager's own creature, powdered, smiling, silent-footed, moving through Song Yi Chen's ancestral hall the way an appraiser moves through a foreclosure. He walks past our host, not around him, past him, the way you pass a pillar, and stops in front of my chair with a lacquered tray and a bow calibrated to the half-degree. Her Highness requests the honor of Mr. Shu's presence at tonight's banquet, he announces. 2 golden invitations, embossed, personal. He presents them to me at forehead height, like tribute. I take my time. I examine the gold leaf. I ask whether the seats have a view. The eunuch assures me Her Highness has arranged everything personally, and behind him I can hear Song Yi Chen's breathing change registers. Because our host is standing in his own reception hall, in front of his own servants, watching the empire he sold his ancestors to hand-deliver gold to the flower farmer, and the envoy has not once looked at him. Finally, he can't bear it. He steps forward, produces his warmest young master voice, and offers the honored eunuch refreshment before the journey back. Ho Rong turns, regards him with the mild, puzzled courtesy you'd give a talkative coat rack. And who might this be, he asks me. Me, he asks me, in the man's own hall. Our host, I say generously. He'll be at the banquet tonight too. I believe he's providing the venue. The eunuch says, ah, the venue, in the tone of a man filing furniture, bows to me again, and glides out. And Song Yi Chen, pride of the South, dragon of the Restoration, makes it exactly 4 seconds before the blood comes up. All over his ancestral floor. That's 5.5, and I want it noted this one required no input from me whatsoever. The Empire is doing my cardio now. We rise, thank him for a lovely visit, and collect Chen Feng on the way out. The boy attaches himself to our party with the speed of a man leaving a burning building. At the gate, I offer our host my only advice of the day, free of charge. Tonight, young master, when you're deciding what to be, remember your family art. Even a mirror gets one chance to choose what it stands in front of. He doesn't answer. Behind his eyes, something is already moving in the dark, some last resort sliding out of its scabbard. Good. Ceremonies need a centerpiece. By sunset, the lake is a constellation, and I built it. Every light in Gusu is converging on the water pavilion of Huanshe, sect boats, family barges, the monk's austere ferry, the princess's floating palace, and one plain skiff carrying a disgraced hero who drinks like a legend. Somewhere out in the dark, iron staffs are tapping toward my party across the water. Somewhere behind, a purple veil is being adjusted. Every invitation I sent is being answered at once, and I'd be lying if I said the view didn't please me. My student stands at our prow in white, the jade manual against her heart, her chin wrapped in silk like a sleeping weapon. Scared? I ask her. Terrified, she says, eyes bright as struck flint. Don't you dare start without me. Huanshe Water Pavilion, lit up like a festival and wired like a trap. Every chair in that gorgeous room has an agenda in it. Song Yi Chen, as nominal host, fires his opening shot with furniture. Our assigned seats are one lonely stool by the service door, positioned so the flower farmer can enjoy the banquet from the coat check. He announces it with silky regret. So crowded tonight, I'll come toast you personally, and the room's minor gentry titter on cue. I inspect my stool with real appreciation. Excellent feng shui, I tell Xiao Qing at volume. Full view of the room, first-degreed arrivals, the natural seat of whoever's actually running the evening. How generous of the young master to acknowledge it publicly. The titter reverses polarity. And before our host can reload, the head of the room speaks. The princess of Shisha, lounging at the place of honor, waves a languid hand and observes that young Master Song seems tired tonight, forgetting how to seat her personal guests. Chairs for Mr. Shu and Miss Lin, beside me, beside her, above the sect heads, above the host. Carried across the room by imperial servants while Song Yi Chen stands in the center of his own party, holding the ruins of joke number 1, promoted in one sentence from host to caterer. Then Xiao Zhan walks in. No invitation, no announcement. Just 300 pounds of unresolved reputation. And the room does the sharp collective inhale of people recognizing a headline. He surveys the crowd, locates me, and plants himself at my shoulder like a load-bearing wall taking up a hobby. Where my brother sits is the head seat. He announces to no one in particular and dares the furniture to disagree. That's the board set. And then the temperature drops 30 degrees. The lantern flames stand still, and the doorway fills with the evening's guest of honor. Talk, talk. Iron staffs on sandalwood. Chen Lai enters like a wound opening, the legless shadow, gray robes, eyes with 20 years of basement in them, and frost crawls across the wine cups while 300 elite guests discover urgent interests in their own laps. He plants both staffs, sweeps the room once, and lands on me. The voice comes out of the floor, the beams, the inside of your teeth. A fine banquet, flower farmer. And whose beheading is it for? Mine, according to your employer, I say, pouring a cup and setting it at the empty place across from me. But the night's young. Sit, your highness. This toast is 20 years overdue, to the pain of never getting what was yours. The room stops breathing. You don't say, Your Highness, to the ruin in gray. That's the Empire's oldest scab, and I just picked it in front of everyone. His killing intent comes up like water over a levee, so I keep pouring, and I read him his own file, gently, the way you'd read a diagnosis. The throne that was his by law, the night his legs and voice and face were taken, along with the name Crown Prince. 20 years converting a man into a grudge with a skeleton in it. And the question underneath all of it, the one he's never once let himself ask, which I now ask for him, in front of the assembled South. If you took the throne back tomorrow, Your Highness, with those hands, that voice, that face the palace made you, who exactly would be sitting on it? The king? Or just the evidence? The frost on the cups cracks. His chi comes apart at the seams, rage with nowhere to file itself. And for one lethal second, the strongest cripple alive stops being a chess player and becomes a wounded thing lunging at the surgeon. An iron staff blurs at my skull with enough force to delete the table and meets Xiao Zhan's bare palm. Boom! The pavilion's pillars jump. 2 of the 5 strongest men on the continent lock in a standing stalemate over the appetizers, beams raining dust, guests achieving new personal records in backwards crawling. And into that perfect, screaming tension, my student plays one note. One single note. She's been sitting at her chin in the corner this whole time, silk sleeves, downcast eyes, part of the decor, exactly where I seated her, for exactly this bar of the music. The note she plays isn't loud, it's true, grief pitch, the manual's heartstring, tuned all evening to the exact frequency of the room's oldest wound. I feel it pass through my own ribs on the way. It goes through the pavilion like a needle through paper, and it finds him. Chen Lie, mid-strike, mid-fury, 40 years of iron discipline. Here's the note his mother's court musicians played the year he was crown prince, or close enough that his soul can't tell the difference. The staff stops. The whole man stops. I watch, from 2 feet away, the most feared creature on the continent get unmade by a zither string. And down that ruined gray face, in front of the entire southern martial world, runs one line of water that no one there, including me, dares call a tear. He looks at the girl at the chin. She looks back, respectful, composed, entirely unafraid, one finger still on the string. First time tonight anyone's met his eyes. The staff comes down off Xiao Zhan's palm. The killing tide walks itself backward. And the first of the 4 great evils turns for the door, pausing only to leave his exit line in the bones of the building. Enjoy your evening, flower farmer. You've made everything I want easier to take. I need only wait for one of your flowers to wilt. I'm very good at waiting. The doorway's empty before the echo settles. Not a victory that. A postponement with my name on the invoice. But tonight's ledger has other pages to burn, so onward, because the banquet must go on. And the banquet's actual business is a man in the center of the room who's been dying by inches all evening. Song Yi Chen. Host of nothing, whose empire's last asset is the secret in his sleeve. I stand, cup in hand, and give the South the toast it came for. To our host I say, and to his family art, returning what arrives. The empire arrived, and he returned his ancestors' estates. A buyer arrived, and he returned his family's manuals. His cousin's trust arrived, and he returned it priced by the ounce. Master of returns, our host. Only one delivery he's never returned. The dead kingdom his ancestors keep sending him. Toast it with me, young master. Or has the mirror finally run out of things to reflect? And the man snaps clean through, and out of his sleeve comes the flame. The holy fire token, held overhead, blazing in the lamplight. Proof of empire, proof of backing, proof of everything, thrust at the room like a verdict. In the name of the first-class hall of Great Z Wuxia, he begins, voice cracking with triumph and ruin, and the princess laughs. That's it. That's the whole intervention. One silver ribbon of laughter from the seat of honor, and then to her wine, conversationally. I revoked that trinket this morning. Did no one tell him? One does hate an outdated accessory. The room detonates. 300 witnesses watch Southern Song stand in the ashes of his own banquet, holding a dead token over his head, a beggar mid-boast, a mirror reflecting nothing, while the empire that owned him giggles into its cup. I don't say a word either. I don't need to. He looks around for one face that isn't horror or glee and finds his cousins. And my student looks back at the man she memorized 4,000 manuals for and gives him nothing at all. A stranger's face. The cruelest sentence in the room, and I taught her every word of that silence. Blood comes up his throat, 6, and the count please note includes 0 punches thrown by me all evening, and his own retainers carry him out of his own party, past his ancestors' lake, while the South watches and learns the new map. The princess catches my eye across the wreckage and raises her cup a precise half-inch. Checkmate acknowledged, says the gesture. Do it again sometime, somewhere I'm not holding pieces. She collars me on the terrace afterward, guards dismissed, veil down for the first time. Worth the wait. For the record, the empire doesn't send its plain daughters to buy kingdoms. Her pitch is the one I expected, dressed better. Forget the burned dog. Work for me directly. Name the price. Thrones have been arranged for less talent. And instead of declining, I read her file too, because she paid for a seat at my ceremony, and everyone at my ceremony gets read. You don't want a kingdom, Highness, I tell her, watching the lake. You've had kingdoms handed to you since the cradle, and they bore you to tears. What you want is what your grandmother wanted and never got. The thing your whole bloodline circles like moths. You want to be free of the board entirely. There's a word for it. Your family used to own the word. Behind the beautiful eyes, everything stops. Carefree, I say. Xiao Yao. Give my regards to the Vulture Palace, granddaughter of Sun Xiuling, the princess of Xisha, spymaster, kingmaker, the evening's only undefeated player, goes white as her own pearls, because that name isn't in any file. That name is her family's sealed room, and the flower farmer just walked out of it, wiping his feet. What are you? She whispers. Third phrasing of the season's favorite question. The man who's going to open the sealed room, I tell her. All of them. There's a game near Shaoxi Mountain that's been jammed for 30 years, the Zhenlong chess puzzle, your grandmother's teacher's dying riddle. Everything your bloodline buried is buried under that board. When it opens, I'll be there. Attend, and you might finally meet the thing you actually want. She looks at me for a long, long moment. Then she unhooks the white jade token from her belt, her personal seal, the one that parts armies, and puts it in my hand. So the door lets me in, she says, whatever door it is, and she walks back to her floating palace with the unhurried gait of a woman who came to buy a hunting dog and instead pawned her compass to a stranger. The system, which has been quiet all evening, chimes softly over the token in my palm. Karma thread established. Xiao Yao sect, 3rd generation. The ledger's oldest debt just found my address. Home after midnight, boats scattered, lanterns dying, the whole lake exhaling. My household drifts to bed victorious, Sun Mei Xin glowing like a woman who watched 2 decades of enemies carried out feet first in one evening. The girls in the cave sleeping like the recently uncursed. Xiao Zhan snoring in the guest wing with one hand on his wine jar even in dreams. And I'm still up when the black-clad shadow slips over my wall, one of mine, breathless, with the night's last report. Song Yichen didn't go home to bed, my shadow reports. He didn't go home at all. His retainers carried him to the family's ancestral island. To the sealed cemetery every song is forbidden to enter, and he went down into it alone. Into the place I've heard the lake's oldest boatman call by a name they won't say twice after dark, the White Bone Tower. And my spy, pale, recites what the grandmothers sing about that place, the rhyme every Gusu child learns and forgets. Lend me your flesh, return my art. Enter at midnight, kneel till dawn. What rises won't see daylight and won't be a man anymore. I stand at my window a long while after that, looking across the black water toward the island where a broken mirror is bargaining with his ancestors' bones for one more reflection. Somewhere out there, a legless king is patiently watching my garden for wilting flowers. A jade token in my sleeve is pulling me north toward a 30-year chess puzzle and a sect of buried heartbreak. An empire knows my face now. A monastery is composing questions. And at the bottom of a forbidden tomb, the man I ruined tonight is feeding himself to something older and hungrier than the empire that owned him. And whatever walks out of that tower won't be coming for my head. It'll be coming for my whole board. 3 weeks ago, I was kneeling in this estate's dirt, priced at 1 flowerbed of fertilizer. I remember the exact weight of the hands on my shoulders. I remember the sack twitching next to me. Tonight, I hold the lake, the library, the ledger, and the undivided attention of every crown, cult, and killer south of the river. And the woman who priced me warms my bed and prunes my enemies. The system hums behind my ribs, counting debts I haven't met yet. Let them come. The tea's already warm, and I hear the flowers do wonders for guests.